Welcome. I'm your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, and your boy on social media at MMA LOTN. Joined as always by my guy, Cody Saftik. You guys can follow him at CJ Saftik on Twitter. And we are here propping you up for UFC Orlando, headlined by a welterweight fight between Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, who I'm sure is very happy to not get a grappler this time around, going up against Kevin Holland, who is probably going to want to throw down as well and provide a great show for that Orlando crowd. Cody, I would not be doing my job though if we didn't start off the show talking about the whole debacle regarding MMA betting in Ontario. Not just MMA betting, specifically UFC betting, because apparently FanDuel now offers props for offers lines for ONE FC, which I don't recall seeing before. Regardless, due to the investigation going on with the whole James Krause, Derek Minner, Shailan Nerdembeka fight, it seems to have spilled over to some of the commissions, some of the regulatory bodies for a lot of this betting and gambling stuff, and it's hit us pretty hard up here in Ontario. Obviously, there are still other ways for us to go out there and bet UFC fights, but a lot of people breathed a sigh of relief back in April when the government finally legalized gambling on a province-wide basis. And that's when the big dogs really start to come to town. The FanDuels, the DraftKings, the Caesars, the PointsBets, all that stuff, they came up here. But now it seems like that we're not going to be able to use those to be betting UFC anymore. Bellator is still a question to be, we're still wondering about, because that they actually have a show next week. So we'll find out next week if they actually post odds for that. But in terms of UFC betting in specific, legally, we can no longer do it in Ontario. Curious to hear your thoughts, as are all the live viewers that we currently have as well.
Yeah, well, honestly, it doesn't really change anything because gambling and sports betting in Ontario has been illegal for the longest time anyway. So if you ever bet in Ontario, you're going through an offshore account anyway. So then all of a sudden they say, oh, it's legal in Ontario. What do you mean it's legal in Ontario? But making bets off both auto and making bets off back when 5 dimes is kicking it. There's tons of websites that you could go to that you could be in Ontario. It didn't matter. So now that it's all of a sudden illegal in Ontario again, it doesn't really change anything for me as far as I'm concerned. Now, in terms of the James Krause thing, well, bro, I'm the one that brought it up, but James Krause is yo boy. So it's an allegedly thing. And did he get his guy to do? I don't know. Does everyone knows the story? So it seems to be stemming from that.
Sorry, Cody. I just want to interject real quick here. Interject real quick because I saw Luca Fury touch on this as well a couple weeks ago in regards to the difference between fight fixing and actually like providing inside information. Fight fixing says that you are telling your fighter to go out there and legitimately lose. What I think happened in this circumstance was that he knew that his fighter was injured going into that fight, and he probably told a couple more people than he should have, hence why the line moved the way that it did. I don't think he had plans on saying, go in there and throw this fight. I think he knew his fighter was injured, and that's ultimately what caused this to occur. Again, still a bad look on my guy, James. I hope it works out for him and things, get a little bit better, but I think we need to define those two terms, right? Fight fixing is a whole different story in my opinion, but giving out information regarding your fighter being injured, that's different in my opinion. Would you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I don't know. I would disagree for the sake of argument, right? I'd like to see what the gray area is on that, because fight fixing is not as simple as just, oh, my guy's going to go out there and take a dive, as much as it's you are trying to predetermine the outcome, right? So you can go out there and try, but try in a different way. Look at, for a good example, okay? Because I know a lot of guys that hit this bet, but day of the Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor fight, right? Floyd Mayweather sends a buddy of his, an associate, into a couple of Las Vegas casinos attempting to put $100,000 cash on him by 10th round TKO, right? Try to bet a 9th round TKO, or try to bet a 10th round TKO. Books won't take it because they look at it. Who is this guy with the cash? They see the affiliation. They can quickly drop back to Floyd. They decline to take it, right? Floyd goes out there and he TKOs him in that specific round. So did Floyd Mayweather take a dive? No. Did Conor McGregor take a dive? No. But did Floyd carry Conor to that round specifically and then take him out in that round specifically because some other one of his associates was able to get the money on that bet? Yeah, 100%. 100%. Now, is that a fix? Yeah, I think so. Because you carried the guy to a specific round and finished him in that specific round. Was he in on it? Maybe not, but you carried him. It's the same way if I was like, yo, we're going to bet this specific prop, right? And then you tell the fighter, listen, the game plan now revolves around trying to hit one specific thing. It's not go out there and fight to the best of your ability, right? There's an argument to be made that TJ Dillashaw didn't throw his fight, even though he knowingly went out there with an injury. But it would be a different thing to know TJ is going out there with an injury and then spread that information to other people. Hey, he's compromised. You can put money in against him. It's too easy to flop a fight, I guess. In my opinion, none of these big KOs are flops, right? If you want to get a quick submission, if you want to go out there and have an injury, like I suppose those are your easiest ways. It can't be all at James Krause's fault, but like, man, all of the pieces are leading up to that entire story. It wasn't his guy simply hurt his knee. It's like there's months of build up to this specifically. So yeah, Ontario, who gives a shit about Ontario, right? Like, it's just small peanuts, right? It's one province in a large country, and it's a small-ass country in the grand scheme of things. So, like, I don't know how many places are going to be totally upset. They'll get it back after their investigation clears, and in New Jersey, after their investigation clears and they can't find any wrongdoing, they'll move on to the next one. But shady as shit, for sure. The fact that the UFC won't suspend his license, the fact that the UFC still keeps booking guys from his gym and allow him to come in and corner, they're concerned about it, so everybody else should be unconcerned about it. But yeah, listen, I think there's a big argument to be made on what is fixing a fight, right? And then knowing your guy is going to lose and putting him in that situation anyways to lose. Trust me, man, I matchmake, right? I'll talk to a guy and he'll be like, I have a fractured hand, I can't win this fight, but if you give me an extra couple thousand on the show money, I am in. Why? Because he's just fucking showing up for the show money, man. He's telling you he's going to lose. He is fucking telling you I am going to lose. So don't bother giving me a 2 and 2. Just give me the 4. Just give me 3 up front and I'll walk away, right? To me, either Minner had financial problems, the gym lost money on the Onama fight, James Krause had pressure because they're doing account takeovers and they're not going well. Who knows what the story is, right? There's a lot of like shady business that goes on in any gym, but you're dipping your toes into like, so imagine an NHL coach or a football coach or something being like, I also sell betting advice. Like, what the fuck? Like, does that not seem asinine to anybody? It's a ridiculous idea, right? This guy's got a show on UFC Fight Pass about betting, okay? He's openly giving advice out about betting. He's got insider information. Well, the only insider information he has would be guys from his own gym, for the most part. You know, it's like the only real insider information I have is on like Canadian guys that you actually know somebody who's really good friends with them, and you got that little bit of inside information. That's inside info. Going on fucking Instagram and checking out what the guy's up to, that's not insider info, bro. I don't care what other YouTube channel tells you that, okay? It's not. It's
tell me you heard that?
Well, I hear that all the time, bro. There's a lot of fake journalists. I'm not taking a shot at anybody mainstay. Like, if you're thinking to yourself, like, oh, is that... No. It's like really small peanut people that show up on my Facebook and shit like that. Mostly Facebook, not as much Twitter. But they'll be like, man, I just talked to this guy. And it's like, no, you saw this guy post something online, read the post, rehashed it in less words, and kicked it out. Like, I don't know. I actually don't hate James Krause. He's not the enemy. It's just, if you were gonna work one, man, let me know. Why can't I be on the inside, James? Kind of a bitch.
We had something a little bit earlier this year happen in terms of the PFL. Remember, they had an event that was already had happened, and then they're still offering lines on it for when it actually taped or when it actually was being shown on live TV. And some people got the inside on it and were able to get some money. And you could see, line movement on the day of the fight move tremendously, but there was nothing that stemmed from it in terms of, an investigation or like anything crazy like that. Like, it was a PFL Challengers a fight card, right? So it's very weird that they're deciding to use this to tackle it. Maybe there's something that we don't know yet that's still to come out. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's unfortunate. Again, the glass half full perspective here. If you were betting on MMA before April, you can still bet on MMA in Ontario. Let's put it that way. And what better way to plug CloudBet, one of our main sponsors of the show as well. If you're out of the game in terms of BetMGM and FanDuel and these other spots up here in Ontario, check out CloudBet. You know what I mean? Link in the description below. One of the first ever cryptocurrency sports books out there. I know they'll still take your action. And obviously, based on their partnership with our show here, they have special props for every single matchup on this weekend's card. So make sure you guys go check that out. All right. I think that's go ahead.
I'll just throw this last bit on there, right?
Yep.
This is why I think MMA is the perfect sport to maybe if you want to work some fights, maybe it's a good avenue to go. It's near impossible to go to a basketball player or a baseball player or a hockey player or a football player, someone who actually makes mucho dinero and be like, yo, throw this game. Because like you're not putting $1 million on the Knicks, let's be real, right? So maybe you're putting 10 grand on the Knicks, and maybe it's even money. So you're getting 10 grand out of it. Yeah, you're trying to work over a player that might be making $100,000 a game. So it's no money to them. But in MMA, these guys don't get paid shit. So it's a lot easier to be like, damn, Derek Minner, what do you get paid per fight? 15 and 15. How many fights do you have a year? 2. So if you go 1-1 in those 2 fights, $45,000. After taxes, after paying your manager, after paying your coaches, paying training partners, paying your nutritionists, paying for your organic supplements, paying for all these different things, you're fucking broke, man. 100% you're broke. So someone was to then be like, hey, you're getting a guaranteed 15. So we're going to bet that exact 15, the exact 15 on a first round knockout loss. You by first round knockout loss, we can make $80,000, $90,000. Don't you think that would not be appealing to a guy?
The question is how many books are actually taking those types of limits, right? Like that's the main thing. MMA, not
10 grand, 15 grand. That's not a huge thing. There's bigger bullshitters out there. People will say, oh man, I got $100,000 on this. I got $200,000 on this. Like that I have way, because listen, man, like I'm one of these guys that, made a lot of money in gambling on MMA in Ontario, right? So I know the limits. I know like the kind of strains that they're going to put on you. I know what is capable. And yeah, maybe that's what they're looking at. I don't doubt that when they look at their numbers, they're looking at, any people that play on NFL lose X amount, right? They're hitting at this percent. People that play NHL, I don't know who the fuck plays NHL, bro. That shit's impossible. But they're hitting at a certain percent. I'm going to go ahead and far as say that they're looking at MMA and they're like, there's more of an edge to this MMA. We have the analytics. More people are cashing on MMA than they are on the rest of these sports. Therefore, maybe it's inside information. Therefore, there's more of an edge to be had in MMA. And they're just looking to reel it back. They're not betting it forever. They're reeling it back so they can figure out and get more data and figure out why this is. Are the lines set poorly? Why is there X amount of underdogs? Why are these underdogs set a certain way? They just got to try to go out there and gather more data on it. But yeah, I would say that when you see pay-per-view and it's like DraftKings Sportsbook, big bet alert, somebody just dropped 50 grand on this person by Stephanie Egger by decision or something. It was something stupid. It was something like unbelievably stupid. Why would somebody bet that? 25 grand. But DraftKings would take it. FanDuel would take it. I know from personal firsthand experience on Bovada, it'd be a $19,000 limit, right? That's pretty fucking close. Yeah. 19 Canadian, closer, like a little 15 US, I guess would be a little less than that, right? So yeah, it's capable to put that kind of money down on a fight, but why would you want to put 20 grand down on a fight unless you knew? And here's the best thing too, right? I'd put 20 grand down on a fight if it was like, this guy's a -3. There's Rafael Dos Anjos, for example, someone who is like a -450, but you just know this person is going to win that fight. Then you put 20 grand to make back like 7 or 8. Not a great investment, right? But it's like that safe money. And let's say someone was like, this guy's going to lose in the first round, and him to lose in the first round by TKO is plus 500. Now that same 20 grand pays $100,000, which is more than Derek Minner would conceivably make in 2 or 3 years of fighting in the UFC at the highest level, averaging 2 fights a year, going 1-1. There's no money to be made, right? There's no money to be made. Whereas working a quick fight, that'd be the way to go. Jason Witt, balls on him, right? Or was it Justin James who bet 25 on themselves and lost?
Yeah, James against Anjos, yeah.
Holy fuck. He almost won that fight. Why did he try to submit Rosa when he had him rocked? I could not tell you. I really could. Rosa had never been submitted before. He bet 25 on himself. That's bold, right? But what I'll leave you with, and we're going to rifle through these fights for 15 fights, but I come from a horse racing background, right? So in horse racing, mob and the fix, and they know what horse is going to win. That's like always the talk of the town because it's been like that for years, and it's always been like that. But why that is I'm putting my horse in this race, and the horse is racing for $5,000. So if I win this race, I win $2,500. But my horse is paying, he's the chalk favorite. He's paying 1-1. He's paying 2-1. And the second best horse in the race, he's paying 6-1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stiff my horse and put $1,000 on the 6-1, and it pays $6,000. So winning the race would pay me $2,500, but stiffing my horse and letting that guy win the race would pay me $6,000. So you do it, right? That's what they would do. It's like, because it's small money. So I'd rather bet and win more money. At the highest level, it's not, you can't do that. You know, maybe Pete Rose, I don't know what the fuck he was doing. But you can't do it at the highest level. It's just, there's nothing to be made there. Michael Jordan, it's not as if Michael Jordan's betting to win money. He's so rich. He's just betting for the thrill of it. It's the thrill of it. He's addicted to the thrill, doesn't care about the outcome. He'll happily lose. I know a lot of bettors, the feeling of losing, it's almost like, oh, fuck, I lost that one. And you go to bed 10 minutes later. You don't lose your sleep over it. You go to bed 10 minutes later. And you wake up in the morning, you don't really feel that shitty about it. And then you win, and the win feels that much fucking better because of the loss, right? So it's like how it goes. In Krause's case, it's not like I'm handing out information for the shits of it. It's like he's not almost making a guarantee, you know. I have the advice, join this Discord, insider information, you know. We're huge on David Onama. His guy Shea's got $2 million on him, and he loses, right? So what would you then have to do to recoup some of that? Well, you might have to consider working one over. And then coincidentally, a month later, some suspicious behavior goes down, and now Jersey doesn't like it, Ontario doesn't like it, you know, different governing bodies are looking into it. Like, it reeks. And when it smells fishy, it's usually pretty fishy. But, yeah, I just, who am I get throwing an accusation around, right? Go online. Everyone's accusing him already. Like, you don't bother listening.
His name is goddamn trending at this point. But yeah,
is it? There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, there's probably a lot of people with pitchforks, right? And they got like a torch that are outside on his front lawn, being like, "What the hell?" But again, it's not like, you know, definitively. It's not like it's come out and it's been like, boom, and we got a guy, and the guy, you know, he sang like a canary, and he was like, James gave me the money and told me to put it down. Like, once that comes out and he's like dead to rights, and it's like, yeah, kill him. But until then, like, yeah, it's very possible, like Luca Fury's saying, like you're saying, I know my guy's hurt. I train this guy. I know what he's capable of. He's going to lose this fight. So what? Do you tell people to bet against him? Is that not wrong?
Yeah.
If it's not illegal, it's morally fucking wrong, right?
Yeah.
So whatever. I'll leave it at that. Now we got 15 fights to talk about, and hopefully we're on the right side of the fix, is all I gotta say.
For sure. I think that's a perfect bow on this whole discussion, which honestly took up a lot of my day because I was just very surprised. Again, we're still going to be able to get our action down through spots like CloudBet and such, but you know, just having those big sports books in Ontario legally was a great thing for a lot of bettors as well. So hopefully this gets rectified very soon, and we'll see and keep our eyes on that storyline. All right, like Cody said, we got 15 fights to talk about, which go down in sunny Orlando, Florida on Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern start time. I believe the main card is going to be kicking off at 9 p.m. or at least 10 p.m. But regardless, 15 fights to talk about. Let's get it started. First fight of the night. It takes place in the women's strawweight division between Yasmin Yadagui and Estela Nunes. In terms of odds, we're currently looking at chalk on the Yadagui side. She's minus 305. She's coming in against Estela, who's coming in at plus 255. Very intriguing fight here, and interesting placement as well. If you guys remember, Yasmin Yadagui actually had the third fight from the top in her UFC debut, going up against another UFC debutant back when the UFC was in San Diego back in August. That night, she performed very well, and she showcased her striking abilities and defeated Yasmin Lucindo that night via decision. And I think that's a similar performance that we're going to get this weekend against Estela Nunes. Nunes, first 6 minutes, looks like a, you know, contender, number one contender type fighter, but then she falls off dramatically, as we've seen in both of her fights in the UFC. The first one losing in that third round to Ariane Carnelosi, and then in that third round, very much slowing down against Sam Hughes. Yadagui has a very solid striking game, though, right? She throws in combinations. She can mix in the takedowns when she needs to. She's been training at the Entram gym. I believe that's where Brandon Moreno used to call home now. Obviously, training with our guy James Krause. We'll see what happens with that title fight coming up in January. But you see Angela Hill down there as well, and Savannah Gomez Juarez, and all these chicks just meeting up at that gym and getting some solid work in. So very interested to see what kind of improvements we're going to see from her. She's undefeated to this point, right? She's a very good prospect, 9-0, and she seems to have all the goods. I just find it interesting that the UFC decided to make her the curtain jerker here, the first fight of the night, compared to that prime spot on the main card that they had her last time. Regardless, I think that she outworks Estella here, mixes in some takedowns, utilizes her output and volume, and ultimately really starts to chop away at Nunes. And I'm going to say finish her in that third round, man. I think that third round prop is always juicy when we're talking about somebody who has shown to have constant cardio issues. Right now, you can get Yadagui anywhere from plus 1,200 to plus 1,400 to win in round 3. I think that's a solid spot. But yeah, Estella could be live early in this fight. But if it is a high pace, I think she's going to slow down and we'll see Yadagui really take over. So give me Yadagui. Not too hot about that minus 300 personally, but I think she wins this fight. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, listen, I think this is one of those coin flip fights on the card, 50-50 type fight, and then the line is just way too off, right? Yadagui looks like she'll be the better prospect. Looks like she's got the output, like you said. She's got decent pace. She's got good cardio. She can mix in a takedown or two. It just seems like all that should go her way. But minus 325 for a women's MMA match already is a dicey proposition. And then the other thing with Estella Nunes is, as much as we can throw some shade her way because of the cardio issues, and yes, she does have cardio issues, she also does have some legitimate skill. The debut with Ariana Carnelossi, she takes on short notice, gasses out, and the 5 takedowns by Carnelossi is what led to that. The fight with Sam Hughes, she looked like $1 million in that first round, right? Might have 10-8'd Sam Hughes in that first round. Second round, still probably won the second round. It's that late takedown at the end that kind of causes the judges to side with Sam Hughes. And then the third, she's done. But even when she's done, it's not like she's got a propensity to get finished. I know Carnelossi was able to grab that rear naked choke, but I feel like Estella Nunes needs to just shore up that cardio. If she does, she's going to have some. She's going to be a problem for some of the girls in the division. So how do I think this one plays out? I like Yadagui, but you're going to get a way better line on this thing on the live market, right? Because as you know, Estella Nunes is a problem for the first 2, 3, 4 minutes, maybe even that first round. If you can maybe drop that first round and then bet Yadagui after the first, I think you get a better number. And then you're hoping, of course, Estella Nunes gasses. If she's short up cardio though, and she can win the first 2 rounds, then you're going to need that finish in the third, and I don't know that it materializes. So I am going to go with the Mexican fighter to get the job done here. I'm going to go with the decision. I know you're thinking inside the distance. I'm thinking just kind of win the second and the third round and then pick up the decision, which is about even money, minus 110, minus 115 range.
If I still had access to FanDuel, I would look at that round 3 / decision prop. I think that's what I'm more so leaning with, either a late finish or just sees it to cross that finish line to get to the judges' scorecards. But still, I do like the Yadagui side, minus 300. No bueno. All right, let's get to this next fight. We're going to be talking about a men's featherweight bout here between recent Contender Series alum Francis Marshall. He's going up against one of Krause's guys, Marcelo Rojo. In terms of odds, we currently have minus 155 on the UFC newcomer and plus 135 on Marcelo Rojo. Now, Francis Marshall, the guy looks like the goods, right? Like, he has a solid wrestling game. He has good cardio. He utilizes his striking well enough to set up his takedowns and control guys from on top. But I think his striking game is still a little bit basic, right? It's a lot of just 1-2s, very just meat and potatoes with the striking, but his speed and athleticism allows him to be so successful with it that guys really don't see the takedowns coming behind it. And I think that's going to ultimately be the troublemaker here for Rojo. I can see people's hesitancy in terms of betting a 6-0 relatively greenish fighter against a guy like Marcelo Rojo, who's been in there with nothing but killers since coming to the UFC and just having absolute wars against them. And yes, Rojo can have success on the feet should the fight find itself there for the majority of the time, but I think that it's ultimately going to come down to those takedowns and Francis Marshall grinding this one out. I actually took a shot on the over here, man. I got it around minus, I believe it was minus 160-ish. It's up to about minus 180 now, but it's only 1.5. I was kind of surprised by that. I thought they would at least make it 2.5, but 1.5. I'm fine with that over there. I think that's a very good spot because I think that the grappling and style of Marshall will force this fight to go over 7.5 minutes. Does it finish after that? Could happen, but I think it's ultimately going to be a Marshall decision, which currently sits at plus 275, which again, a little bit of a surprising number to me, if I'm being honest, but that over 1.5, I think is the perfect spot for this card or for this fight. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, and you know what? I'm kind of leaning towards like one of those crazy props that you'd be into, which would be Francis Marshall by third round finish, which could be had anywhere between plus 800, plus 1,000. We're going what I like to call the Andrew Sanchez effect, right? So Andrew Sanchez can't fight a third round, right? Everybody knows it. Yeah, I know. Miraculously, 4 times in the UFC alone has he lost by third round TKO. He's got the goods that first round. He can wrestle. He looks pretty solid, good fundamental striking. And then the longer it goes, he gasses out. When he gasses out, he is just there for the taking. Marcelo Rojo, his debut against Charles Jourdain. Damn, dude, he looked pretty good. He definitely win one of those first 2 rounds. It was 1-1 going into the third. There's even a small little argument he may have won the first 2 rounds, but it's a bloodbath. He sits down on all of his punches. He hurts Jourdain. He gives a solid account of himself, and unfortunately, in that third, completely gasses out, done. The Kyler Phillips fight may be more concerning because his takedown defense is just no good. And beyond that, gets tired and then goes ahead and gets finished in the third round. With Matthews, I feel like he can put that kind of pressure on you. Sorry, with Francis Marshall, I feel like he can put that kind of pressure on you, put that grind on you. Is he still green and basic? Yeah, of course. You know, kid's born in 1999. He's still just a baby in the game, right? But what I like about him is that pace and that tenacity. He's throwing 1-2 standing, but he's got excellent entries. When he does get on the hips, you know, he continuously grinds for the takedown, multiple takedowns, lots of ground and pound, and just continuous pace. Fighting in the Contender Series, in front of Dana, you know, it's all good learning experience stuff. He needs to improve, he needs to get better, but I think he will. And I think that maybe the submission will open itself, maybe a good position maybe to get him out, just smother him, put him in a bad compromising situation, and then just pound away, and then hopefully the referee comes in and stops you. But I feel like he's live for maybe that late stoppage. So you're over 1.5. I like it because this kid's definitely going to take his time. He wants to wrestle, he wants to set it up. And Rojo reminds me very much of a Guido Canetti. He's just tough, man. He is. He sits down on all of his punches. He's going to throw caution to the wind. He's going to throw down, but at the same time, he's limited in who he is as a fighter. So I got the kid squeaking this one out, using that wrestling, using that pace, using that just that ability to take him into some deeper waters. And I'm hoping for one of those crazy little like third round stoppages and have the kid finish inside the distance late into the fight.
Solid comparison to his fellow countryman, Guido Canetti there. But yeah, obviously not as old and definitely a little bit more explosive at this point in time. But I get exactly.
Guido's on a career best run right now. He's starching fools, bro. He just killed Costa, and then his fight before that. Like, damn, Guido's got like a little career comeback. Chris Moutinho and Costa, Randy Costa. So if you're a fraud, but you fight in the UFC and you got a reputation, do not fight Guido Canetti.
There you go. All right, let's keep this train moving along. This takes us to the men's lightweight division now, where we have a scrap between Natan Levy, who's coming in at -200 and +170 to return on Guinero Valdez. Now, I'm very much looking forward to your breakdown on this one, Cody, because I really cannot understand the love behind Natan Levy. Like, the guy does not look as great of a fighter as most people make him out to be, right? He was obviously a Contender Series alum as well, and he was able to earn his contract there, but like, you know, he has a cool karate style where he likes to kick a lot, but it seems like the majority of his success is when he's able to drag guys to the ground. But if he's not able to get them out of there, God, does he look bad in round 3s, right? Like Mike Breeden almost beat this guy in round 3, almost got him out of there. The Rafa Garcia fight gives up a numerous amount of takedowns in that round and loses that round and loses that fight ultimately, right? It seems like his cardio very much does start to slow down. Guinero Valdez, that guy leaves a lot to be desired as well, right? Going life and death against an Alaska FC product on the Contender Series is a big red flag, but the guy constantly goes out there and does what he does best. And that's just move forward, put pressure on his opponents, whether it's his, you know, not very technical striking style or getting these fights to the ground and finding that finishing position, that dominant position. He's always forcing the fight. He's always pushing the fight. Now, I think if people just kind of look at the Contender Series fight and see how much he struggled against a guy like Patrick White, where he still ended up winning in that second round, you know, credit to him, even after looking like he was on death's door at the end of the first round, he got the win. And they're probably looking at the Matt Frevola fight where he gets knocked down 5 times and be like, oh, this guy sucks. I think move the scope out a little bit, like zoom out a little bit, and you'll see some of the things that he's good at. Still, the level of competition a little bit sketchy, but Natan Levy's no like veteran of the game. Natan Levy's no, you know, solid prospect in my opinion. So I actually ended up taking the underdog shot here, man. I know there is some risk with it, but like, I don't think Levy will be comfortable in this fight considering how Guinero fights. Guinero's going to be on his ass the entire time. And I think that this could be a spot where he could potentially get that finish in the third round as well. Cody, you know I love those round 3 props whenever I get the opportunity to do so. And this one is kind of yelling at me right now. Valdez round 3 plus 1,400 all the way up to plus 1,800 on certain spots. But if he can survive that early onslaught, if his chin and durability can hold up early here, I think he can deal with the grappling of Natan Levy and then eventually reverse this later on in the fight and then potentially get him out of there in that second, third round after all the pace and pressure he's put on him. Again, regional competition, not the greatest, but I liked what I saw from him in the aspect that he can come back from adversity and still pull off the victory even deep into fights. So I'm going to go Guerrero inside the distance, which currently sits at plus excuse me, currently sits at plus 250. But I'll also sprinkle that round 3 prop at plus 1,400 for Valdez to get his hand raised, but at plus 170 on his money line. I'm all for that as well. What are you thinking here? Am I crazy or is Levy actually good?
No, you're not crazy. I mean, I think a lot of it, like you said, is recency bias on Gennaro Valdez. You see his last 2 fights, it's like, okay, so he doesn't move his head and he can't take a great shot, right? It's not conducive to a long career in the UFC. He was a 10-1 favorite, Manpreet. 10-1 favorite over Patrick White from Alaska.
I know.
And yet he got bailed out by the fact that he was fighting a guy from Alaska that could not wrestle, right? He went 4 for 8 on takedowns. Yeah, dude, he was like, it was a boiling bite. And it was just like, oh, man. Dude, the whole thing was hilarious. I'm laughing the whole time. I got a bunch of money on Valdez, as does everybody. Yeah. The reason he's a 10-1 favorite is we, the people, drove the line. And embarrassing to say the least. So he squeaked by. It was one of those like, whoof, I learned my lesson. And I've seen a lot of people being like, sure, he won and got a contract, but I'm fading that man when he comes to the UFC from what I saw. Fair enough. Now in the Matt Frivola fight, they faded him big time. And as a result, he lived up to those expectations. He got dropped 4 times in the first round. He got hit, was it 60 times? 60 significant strikes landed in 3 minutes. 3 minutes and 15 seconds. 3:15. He got hit with 60 significant strikes and dropped 4 times. So yeah, that's going to go ahead and be classified as extremely problematic. Now I know what you're saying with Natan Levy, kickbox or karate background, doesn't really throw a whole lot of heat standing. You know, is he going to be the guy that hits him and knocks him out? Maybe not. But I think that there's going to be definitely a question about the durability, and that's going to be cause for concern 100%. You got to be thinking about that. With Natan Levy, though, what I'm maybe more interested in is training full-time out of Las Vegas, training with some of the best guys in the sport, but he loves to grapple. Like everything is grapple. And coming from a karate background, grappling's not even his best weapon. It's something that he's obviously having to catch back up on, but he loves to just get into these wrestling exchanges. And you look at all of his fights, you know, they obviously feature a lot of takedowns, not the best control, but I think he's still young enough, 29, 30 years old, that he's going to be working. He's going to be addressing a lot of those issues with the top control, and then just use the takedowns. So again, when you look at his fight with Rafa Garcia, he gets 3 takedowns, Rafa gets 7. Rafa Garcia has shown a propensity to get a lot of good takedowns in the UFC. He's been kind of that takedown artist, and guys find it very difficult to deal with that. In that fight, which is a huge step up for this kid coming off the Contender Series, I thought he gave a good account of himself. He had moments, lost, got tired, but bro, it was a hectic pace. And unfortunately, he loses. The Breeden fight, that should have been an easier walk in the park. Everyone's laughing at Breeden like he's a no joke, but Breeden showed up for that fight, did a good job. And still, Natan Levy goes out there and gets the 9 takedowns. So Gennaro Valdez, what you see on the regional scene, because you mentioned it yourself, it's a little salty, right? It's not as if he's fighting great guys on the regional scene. And that's the reason, he looks good against lower level competition. He's going to look good against Patrick White. Everybody bets him up, does not look against Patrick White. Does not look good against Matt Frivola. But more important to me is that Matt Frivola shot 0 takedowns and Patrick White shot 0 takedowns. And these guys that were cans in the regional scene, well, they just didn't have the skills to actually go out there and shoot those takedowns. So how good is this guy off of his back? And his chin's no good standing. His chin's not going to be no good when he's on the ground getting ground and pounded. I know Levy will get takedowns. I don't know what Valdez will do once he gets taken down. And so that makes Levy a little more interesting to me. I would think he wins. I think this is probably inside the distance either way. If Levy wins, he's going to take him down, beat him up, and get a finish. And the way Valdez loses seems to be like it'll be inside the distance. And the flip side to that, like you're saying, he could swarm Levy and finish him late. So I agree this thing's not going the distance. My issue is that fight don't go the distance is like minus 250. And the under 2.5 is like minus 220. So they're not great prices. You would have to put your hat on one of these guys and say, I like that guy inside the distance. I'm picking Levy, but I don't love Levy. So I'm not looking to bet him personally. You win the underdog shot and inside the distance and it pays well, I wouldn't fault you for that. But I am going to make the official pick Natan Levy.
All right, already some dissension on the third fight of the night, which I love to hear, Cody. Let's hear both sides and try to make a point for it. Let's see who comes out on top. All right, let's get to this next fight here. We got a pretty interesting women's flyweight bout here. I honestly expected these women to be a lot further along in their careers before we saw them go up against each other, but here they are. Tracy Cortez coming in as a, well, actually, this fight is a pick'em. She was a slight underdog earlier this week. Money has come in on her, and now it is a pick'em where she goes up against Amanda Hebos. Very interesting matchup here. Obviously, Tracy Cortez, mainly known for her grappling, her wrestling game. That's what got her into MMA, and ultimately, what caused her first loss, which was her first ever pro fight, where she got guillotine choked after a desperation takedown. But she has very much improved since that matchup. Just as we saw in the Melissa Gatto fight last time around, she got out of some bad submission opportunities from Gatto. She held her own on the feet, managed to get the fight to the ground, where she does her best work controlling opponents from on top. Amanda Hebos, not as threatening of a finisher, in my opinion, as Melissa Gatto, but I think her technical abilities could catch Tracy Cortez slipping if she does either go for a desperation takedown or if she doesn't mind her P's and Q's when she's on the feet. I think Hebos, still, I've kind of been pounding the drum for almost 2 years now, it seems, since her Marina Rodriguez fight, that I still think her striking is a little bit fraudulent at times when she goes up against fighters that have solid striking, right? That's when she normally comes up on the losing end. Marina Rodriguez, she gets knocked out. Katlyn Chookagian, close fight. Say what you want about that decision, but she couldn't keep up with the output style of Katlyn Chookagian. She will likely have the striking advantage here against Tracy Cortez, who's still trying to round out that spot of her game, but I think it's going to come down to the takedowns that Cortez will land here, and I think from there it's going to be hard for Hebos to throw up any type of submission to to catch her in anything and finish her in that spot. So I am leaning Cortez here. Excuse me. I'm leaning Cortez. I'm thinking Cortez by decision as well. Fight goes to decision, obviously minus 280, a little bit chalky to play that straight up. But Cortez to win by decision currently sits at plus 130. I think that is the bulk of her win condition here. I don't really see a way that she beats Amanda Hebos. I don't see her submitting her. I don't see her ground and pounding her. I think anytime she gets a dominant position, we'll see Hebos shrimp and squirm and get out of those bad positions. But I think that we'll obviously, or always, continuously see Tracy Cortez get that top position and grind her out in this spot. So let's go with Brian Ortega's Bay to get the decision victory here. What are you thinking, Cody? We got some dissension here, or do you like the Arizona product as well?
Yeah, honestly, I'm kind of 50-50 on this fight. Like, my heart tells me that Tracy Cortez is going to go get the job done. I like the wrestling style. I think that if she goes out there and gets the takedowns over Amanda Hebos, then as you mentioned, the Melissa Gatto fight, not only that, the Stephanie Egger fight, she's shown a good ability to take down good submission specialists and just kind of stay out of harm's way, right? I think she does have that wrestling advantage. I like what I like out of her. But you know what? You got the same eye, man. You saw kind of what I'm thinking. I think the way to beat Hebos is probably just stuff the takedowns and exploit the striking, right? She's getting hit by Verna Jandiroba standing. Her striking defense is not very good. She doesn't seem very comfortable. And then, yeah, Marina Rodriguez fight. First round, she dominated Rodriguez on the ground. Second round, it was like as soon as she got hit, she was uncomfortable. And Rodriguez does pack some heat for the division, but is actually short on knockout wins in the UFC. So I think that there's not necessarily that chance for Tracy Cortez to knock her out as much as sprawl and brawl her, win this striking exchanges, push her backwards. This will be a battle of who's pushing the other fighter backwards, I think. And Tracy Cortez might have an ability to do that. But yeah, honestly, this is just one of those coin flip type of fights. I think Hebos has fought the much higher level of experience. She's going to have some moments. She's strong. She's physical. That fight with Katlyn Chookagian, she mustered up a couple takedowns there. If she was able to take Tracy Cortez down, it would be a problem. Tracy Cortez also doesn't necessarily fight particularly well off her back foot. So again, if Hebos comes out aggressive and pushes her backwards, it's going to be a problem. But my man Paul Shaughnessy made an excellent point. Made me really think about it last night. Thought about it extensively last night, right? He says, you know what? Tracy Cortez has got a real big caboose on her. She's a girl that's fought real high up, higher weight class, taking on a girl in Hebos that's fought lower in weight class, right? If Cortez goes and gets her down and out muscles her to the mat, she's going to just set up shop on top and not go anywhere. So it got me thinking, Tracy Cortez does have a hell of a caboose. I'm talking, I went on Instagram, I went on TikTok, I went on any type of social media just to confirm that thing is solid. That thing's legit. Brian Ortega, lucky man. And yeah, dude, if she gets the takedowns, I think she's going to have a lot of success from top pressure. If she doesn't get the takedowns, I think she just uses her hips, keep the fight upright, outstrike her, get the job done. But this is a 50-50 fight. I think it goes distance. It's another one that the line on the fight goes the distance is 100% accurate on it. I think most people think that this thing will probably go 15 minutes. But I don't know. I think I'm back leaning towards Tracy Cortez ever so slightly. But on a 15-fight card, I don't think you need to overexpose yourself and bet every single fight. This one's more of a pass for me.
Yeah, I'm right there with you as well. I do lean the Cortez side, but I just want to see her against like this step, essentially a step up in competition before we get off the rails about her. If anybody got her at plus money earlier this week, all credit to you. Let's see how it actually plays out Saturday night. All right, next up, men's featherweight division here. We got Darren the Damage Elkins going up against JSP Jonathan Pierce, as you would expect, minus 460 on Jonathan Pierce, plus 370 the return on Darren Elkins. I'm thinking violence here, Cody. I think that this is one of those spots where we'll see JSP just snap and be like, I'm so much better than this guy. Like, I don't even have to, he might not even have to rely on his wrestling here, which is usually his bread and butter. He likes to take guys to the ground, dominate them on the mat, and find a finish. But in this fight, it seems like he can just go out there and slang them, swing that leather, and he could possibly find the chin of Darren Elkins and put him down and out in this fight. Like, I don't think this is a fight he even needs to break much of a sweat in. Darren is always going to be that tough hell for a lot of people, like, where if he's able to endure that early damage, no pun intended there, he should be able to pull away with the fight as it goes on. And like, if you look at the JSP fight against Christian Rodriguez, you'd be like, oh, of course Darren Elkins is live in this matchup. Look what happened to JSP when he couldn't get Christian Rodriguez out of there. The guy slowed down like hell, and Darren Elkins is going to make this guy work. But I think it ultimately comes down to JSP's approach. I ain't got no insider information or anything here or anything like that. But I really do think that this is one of those spots where we'll see him go out there, use his striking, find that chin of Darren Elkins, get him out of there early. I'm thinking under 2.5 here, Cody. I got in around that minus 130 mark, minus 125 mark. It's still roughly around those odds. But that's how I think this fight finishes, man. I think it's a finish regardless. I'm leaning JSP. It's possible Darren Elkins could potentially find a finish, like a submission later on in this matchup, but I don't even think this thing sees the second round, man. I think JSP goes out there and just obliterates him off jump and then gets back into there against like legitimate competition that's going to get him into the rankings. Darren Elkins is a great name to have on your record and resume, but it does nothing for him in terms of moving towards the title shot in this division. So get this quick win. Hopefully it's without a sweat. Book him again in the next couple months so he can actually start making some noise in that division there, in the 145-pound division, and start fighting some ranked guys. So I'm going to go JSP. I'm even going to go JSP round 1 plus 200, but the under 2.5 is where the bulk of my money is going to go for this matchup. What about yourself?
Yeah, I'm going to agree on most of your points. I think Darren Elkins has been a very good quintessential grinder, quintessential gatekeeper, a guy that's tough. He gives you a tough out, but his time has kind of passed. He's getting a little bit older. Apparently, he just did re-sign a new contract with the UFC. But that's for entertainment more than anything. I don't think he's going to crack into the top 15. He just kind of does a good job of entertaining the fans and kind of guarding that gate. But what does Darren Elkins bring to the table? It's like, oh, damn, dude's got pretty solid cardio, man. He's got that old, old-fashioned all-American grind. He can wrestle. His striking, yeah, at least something to be desired, but he's always continuously in your face and bringing the pressure, and he can take a decent punch. It's like, okay, all those things start to evade him ever so slightly. Did I not just kind of describe JSP, Jonathan Pierce? I mean, he's got everything that Elkins does. He's just that newer, fresher 2.0 version. He's got that wrestle. He's got that grind. He's got that pace. The Christian Rodriguez fight, I'll admit, he totally gassed out. His chin, not great. The Lozon fight, same thing. His striking defense, not great. But those are just bad nights, bad performances. He still won the fight in the third round. He had every reason to lose, but he put his big boy pants on and he got the job done, right? He fought for your dollar. He got it done. Rodriguez was a difficult opponent, right? It was someone that, sure, Rodriguez is on short notice, but Pierce didn't have any time to really prepare for him. And then coming back in the Makwan Amirkhani fight, this is your time to show everybody, prove everybody wrong. His wrestling easily out-wrestled Makwan Amirkhani. Everyone kept talking about he sticks his head into chokes, and Makwan's got a nasty, guillotine choke, front headlock, and easily evades everything. Puts a beating on him, breaks him down, TKOs him. 90 significant strikes landed through 2 rounds. Very solid performance out of him. So I think he can go out there, do the exact same thing against Darren Elkins. Where does Darren Elkins win this fight? Well, what if he gets takedowns? I just don't see it happening. Pierce has got excellent counter wrestling, good hips, solid base, good balance. I don't know that taking him down is going to be on the table. What about grinding him into the fence? Yeah, I just don't think holding him onto him is exactly the path of victory either. I mean, the guy doesn't spend a whole lot of time with his back up against the cage, and then beating him in the open field, whether it's possible, Elkins would have to be the best version of Elkins. If you look at Elkins, say even just a couple years ago, his fight with Nate Landwehr, he stands in the center of the cage with Nate Landwehr and absorbs everything Nate throws his way. Good argument he might have won that fight. Solid performance from him in the striking department, which you don't necessarily see. Just a year later against Cub Swanson, that durability is gone. And that's what I'm seeing from him here. We know Pierce is talented. The question is, are we going to get the Rodriguez version or the Makwan version? Whereas Elkins, you're not even optimistic that a good version of him is going to show up. It's more of a decline. It's just steadily getting a little less and a little less. Now people will say, well, man, he's coming off a win over Tristan Connolly. Tristan Connolly just lost on the BFL regional scene against Xavier Nash, 6-5, lost all 3 rounds handedly, right? And it's like, well, what about Elkins' other wins? It's like, what about his other wins? Why don't you go ahead and
Garagori?
Eduardo Garagori, right? What's he doing? Is he kicking it around? Is he doing anything optimistic? All right. What about Derek Minner? I don't know. What is Derek Minner up to?
I don't know, Cody.
Don't you tell me what Derek Minner is up to? Yeah, okay, so can Darren Elkins beat those guys? Wow, sure. Darren Elkins can beat me too, right? But yeah, I think against a Jonathan St. Pierce, he maybe bit off a little more than he can chew. So doubling down on the exact same points as you, I'll just take it one small step further. I don't think Pierce submits him. I think if he's going to knock him out, he's going to knock him out, which I totally can't see happening. But I think I'm just going to get greedy. Instead of taking the inside the distance, minus 125, take the knockout, plus 165. That's kind of where my head's at.
I love how the JSP nickname really got you to the point that you call him Jonathan St. Pierce. But
yeah, well, if they're going to call him, yeah, buddy, you know what? You got to carry the flag, right? He's American, and he doesn't really fight like my boy George, but I like it, baby. JSP, you gotta go out there and get some wins. So if you can't beat Darren Elkins, hand in the fucking name, pal. Give it back.
Yes. I was thinking about doing that or petitioning that after he got knocked out by Joe Lozon in his UFC debut, but he's made up for it since then. Good on him. But yeah, you can't be losing to Darren Elkins. You can't lose him, nor can you not finish him. Go out there and finish this guy. Let us help us catch our tickets. But even just as a statement alone, that's what he should be doing. All right, let's get to the next fight here. We're going to be talking about a men's lightweight bout here between Michael Johnson and Mark Diakese, or is it D1 Diakese, Cody? This guy has landed 20 takedowns in the last 2 fights, which is absolutely crazy considering that's, he used to shoot takedowns in the past before, but it's not like this. He doesn't have that intention of going out there and grinding, or he didn't have the intention of going out there and grinding his opponents out the way that he has done over the last 2 fights. I believe it's been a combined, I have the number here on one of my sticky notes. It's been 20. I lost it. I believe, sorry, here it is. 26 minutes of control time over his last 30 minutes of fighting. 26 minutes of control time. These guys have nothing for his wrestling, and I don't think Michael Johnson will either, right? Mark Diakese came into the UFC as a flashy striker. That's what he was known as, right? Little did we know he had a complete MMA game that he just wasn't showing. He went on a little bit of a roller coaster run in the UFC, and there was a point in time where he was using his calf kick to such success that he was, dispatching of guys like Joe Duffy. And then Rafael Fiziev was like, oh, I know how to check those. And then he goes out there and beats Mark Diakese. But, since that last losing streak he's been on, he's come back, won a couple fights in a row now, a lot of it based on his grappling success. And I expect him to go out there and do the same thing here against Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson, he still shows flashes of brilliance of times, right? Like the Jamie Malarkey fight, very close fight. He probably could have got his hand raised in that one too. But at his best, he uses his combination striking, he uses his footwork, and that's usually enough for him to get his hand raised. He is a far cry from when he knocked out Dustin Poirier years and years ago. And I think he's only won 2 fights since that fight. But I think that he struggles when guys can put a full and complete MMA game against him. We saw Clay Guida have tremendous success against Michael Johnson. Mark D1 Diakese needs to go in there, get this fight to the ground, grind him out, and even on the feet, he can remain competitive enough that he can hide those takedowns behind his combination and his striking. And I think that's ultimately going to allow him to get this fight to the ground, like I said, grind this one out, pick up another decision victory. And yes, that's the prop that I'm going to go with for this one, Cody. Diakese by decision, minus 115, minus 135. I think it's somewhere around that range. But Yeah, I just don't think that Johnson is going to get comfortable enough to get his striking off in this matchup where he is comfortable. I don't see that happening. Give me Mark Diakese to pull off another slop fest of a grinding decision. What are you thinking here, Cody?
Yeah, I'm going to 100% agree with you. Here's my greasy theory. Me and Paul talked about it a little bit yesterday. Michael Johnson, right? Longtime bear of the division. He's super exciting. He's got the winner over Dustin Poirier. He's got a fight of the year candidate against Justin Gaethje. He's all action and he cannot wrestle. All of his fights, his cardio's not very good, and his takedown defense. For a guy that actually wrestled junior college, NAIA, he can't wrestle. Just like the takedown defense always lets him up when he needs it the most. So what do? You're now a 36, 37-year-old Johnson, never quite got there, all-action guy. If you're the UFC, you give him all-action guys, and yet they give him Mark Diakese, a guy that's been scoring 20 takedowns, that is getting booed out of the arena, that nobody seems to love this style of just taking guys down repeatedly. Why would you give Michael Johnson him? Why would you not give him an entertaining guy to entertain the fans? But if I'm Michael Johnson, I'm Michael Johnson's manager, and I just seen Olivier Aubé Mercier knock out Stevie Ray to win $1 million fucking dollars. I'll tell you what's up. I want my walking papers, okay? Johnson's on a bad run. He gets paid a decent amount to fight in the UFC. They're going to look to release this guy if he can't beat Mark Diakese. He's getting taken down. And yet, this dude could conceivably win $1 million in PFL where everybody is live to win $1 million. So this fight with Diakese doesn't really pose a ton of risk of like, you're not going to get knocked out. You're not going to get submitted. You'll get taken down a bunch of times. But what's another loss, right? Johnson's been in there with Khabib Nurmagomedov. We've been in there with the best guys in the world. Is he going to get taken down? Likely. Could he win this fight? Yeah, possible. If he gets those hips moving. And again, in the Alan Patrick fight, his takedown defense looked pretty good. In his last fight against Jamie Malarkey didn't really force the issue of the takedowns on him. But again, his hips look good. It's that guys that can continuously chain wrestle and pressure him are going to tend to tire him out. Hell, I mean, he actually already fought Stevie Ray. I thought he looked pretty good in the first 2 rounds. Maybe 1-1 going into the third, and it's that late takedown in the third round. I mean, that's what blows it for him. The fight with Thiago Moises, first round, he looks like $1 million, 10-8 first round. Second round, he just falls onto a leg, and then all of a sudden, Johnson's tapping out. He's got a way of blowing the long fight goes. And Diakese shown good cardio, good wrestling, but not necessarily that finishing ability. So I'm going to agree with you. He uses that wrestling, he uses the cardio, stay safe, get the fight to the ground, go for 15 minutes, win the decision, and then at minus 125-ish, for Diakese by decision, I think that would be the most likely outcome.
I'm looking forward to that, like mass exodus of guys that are wanting to fight their contracts out and then go to the PFL, right? Because like Olivier Aubé Mercier, even if he fought like 15 times in the UFC, he's probably not making $1 million. And now it's, a guy like him. And again, no disrespect to OAM, right? Like the guy came into the UFC off the Ultimate Fighter losing to Chad Laprise, but a lot of people had high hopes for him, thinking that he had a ton of potential. And then you fight, back to back hard matchups and you find yourself outside of the UFC, and now you have $1 million. So I'm interested to see over the next couple of years which fighters are deciding to fight out their contracts and then ultimately make it to the PFL. But maybe Michael Johnson and that greasy theory has some legs.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's not even just like the meme from last week. Obviously, you're a social media guy, so you've seen it a zillion times. But it was like Brendan Lucane, and it was like, this motherfucker got told on Dana White's Contender Series he wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
And now he just won $1 million. Very inspirational. To me, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking to myself, like, man, it's not just like Brendan Lucane was turned down on the Contender Series and all of a sudden won $1 million. It's like Aubé Mercier got released from the UFC. He's outside the top 15 and he goes and he wins $1 million, right? Sadibou C would be ranked like the 30th best guy in the division, right? He wins $1 million. Rob Wilkinson had lost to Israel Adesanya. Again, props on that, but like just fights outside, goes out and beats Amari Akhmedov and makes $1 million. None of these guys would be anywhere in the UFC. Past winners include Sean O'Connell, won a fucking $1 million.
Yeah.
Lewis Taylor won $1 million. Emiliano Sordi won $1 million. Felipe Lins won $1 million. It's ridiculous, man. What a bad guy. Lance Palmer won $2 million. Oh, shit. He wouldn't be the top 10 in the UFC. That's a fact, right? So I would think if you were decent and you could go on a little run, and no, this is no disrespect to Olivier Aubé Mercier as well. Like, it's like you're saying, it's badass and he won $1 million. His road to the $1 million, since he got released from the UFC, he beat Marcin Held, who went, I think, 0-3 in the UFC and got released. Not a UFC talent guy. Daryl Horcher, who fanned out of the UFC. Natan Schultz, who I'm not sure on that guy. For the record, he's won $2 million in PFL tournaments. But like, is he any good? I couldn't tell you. He fights PFL level guys, and he seems to struggle sometimes. Sometimes he looks pretty good. Guy's got judo for days. American top team, still young, but other times he don't look good at all, right? And that's this big win. Rush Manfio, Alex Martinez, and Stevie Ray. Could you imagine that run in the UFC? It wouldn't have gotten you anywhere. It would have been like you're fighting guys that are all getting collectively cut in their next fight.
Still be fighting on the prelims.
Yeah, you'd be fighting on the prelims, and they'd be like, "Would you take a 20 and 20?" And Venom would give you $6,000. Like it's no money, right? You're gonna fight 3 times a year to make $100,000, and this guy just wins 3 fights and wins $1 million against lesser competition than he'd be fighting in the UFC. So yeah, 100%. Like if I'm, I could see some of the upper echelon guys even being like, you know what? Why not have a look? If I'm Robert Whittaker, realistically, it's like, maybe I can't beat Izzy Adesanya. I can't really beat Izzy. I don't know that I want to try this Pereira mask all that much either. But would Robert Whittaker win that tournament in the PFL? I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah, he's pretty good. Does that not seem like the way to go? Kayla Harrison couldn't beat Larissa Pacheco. I know she already did twice. I get it. But lost to Larissa Pacheco, who, by the way, is pretty good. Don't get me wrong. But
she's gotten so much better.
Yeah, she most definitely has. And she's like one of the few girls on the planet. Well, one of the few girls that fights MMA professionally that's like good size for that division. Like she's big, she's filled out. So yeah, she gave Harrison a run. But I mean, Harrison's won a couple $1 million in these tournaments, and she's losing to Larissa Pacheco. So yeah, I don't know. If the UFC brought in Kayla Harrison and said, "Do you want to fight Jermaine Duran to me?" Would they offer $100,000 like base? Like probably not, right? And if they did, that would be it. And yet PFL's offering her $3 million fight Cyborg or something stupid and a Rolls Royce. Pretty dope. I think I would be telling my manager, shit, dog, check out these guys. Right? Maybe we'll make a run. And if you win the tournament, there's nothing to say you can't go to the UFC based on that. Like, isn't that what Felipe Lins did? He win the $1 million, and then they were like, yeah, we actually don't like you all that much, even though you're our champion. Go to the UFC. They can't even win fights in the UFC.
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting to see over the next 3 years how many UFC fighters in their prime are going to make the jump, especially if they're not able to get title fights, if they're not able to get #1 contenders, because everyone believes they're the best. And if you get the UFC title, there is potential to make more money than you would have made in PFL. But that's the issue. Not everybody's going to be that. It's like the top 1%, maybe top 0.5% of UFC fighters that actually make that kind of money. So we will see once, we'll revisit this in the next 3 years and see.
The other thing, though, is the business side of it is if this is realistically, if you said, you know what, the UFC's offering me a contract and it's 80 and 80, and I'm going to tell them, now go get fucked, I'm going to PFL could. This is allegedly, same thing like James Krause fixing fights. Allegedly, PFL can be a fucking Ponzi scheme, bro. It's very good possibility that they're not around next year or the year after that or the year after that. So, yeah, you're looking at it nearsightedly to be like, I can win $1 million now, potentially. But if they were like, yeah, sorry, we lost a whole lot of money, we're closing up shop, and you told the UFC to kick rocks and turn down their offer, very difficult to now get back into the UFC. And if you do get back in, they're going to give you a low ball offer. So it's always like, don't bite the hand that feeds you. And it's the same reason a lot of these fighters, they're like, oh, I'm retiring, I'm officially hanging up my gloves. It's over for me. And they're like, oh, okay. Hey, man, what's going on with fighter union stuff? It's like, dog, you didn't want to talk about fighter union shit. The whole time you were active as a competitor. The second they retire, they're like, okay, I can breathe with a sign of relief. Because you just don't want to be the guy that's, Luke Rockhold, okay, sure. You want to talk about unions? Okay, all right. Dude, look at all the guys that have talked about unions while actively in the UFC. You get a bad fight, you get a beating, they don't book you, they release you from your contract. It's like, I don't know. It's a tough spot, man. You're tiptoeing a fine line.
What I actually found hilarious is I saw MMA Fighting put on their Instagram the whole betting thing that came out today about Ontario, and the first 2 comments that I saw, and I love one of the guys. I mean, he was one of my guys, but you see CB Dalloway and TJ Laramie. First things that they say, if the UFC paid these fighters a little bit more, we wouldn't be having these issues. I'm like, guys, come on, whatever. Both you guys no longer with the promotion. I get the freedom that you might have now to speak against them.
CB Dalloway, because you'll remember this one, fucking wrecked his back in an elevator accident.
Yes.
Remember he was fighting for the UFC. and it got jammed, and there was like 6 fighters that got hurt, but like he jammed his back and pulled out of the fight, and his lawyer was like, you should sue the UFC, sue the hotel, sue everybody. And he was like, wow, I mean, the UFC didn't really do anything, but that's the problem with lawyers. The lawyer's game plan is always sue everybody, because a lot of it is going to get dismissed anyways. But the more that you can cast out that net, the higher likelihood of you have landing something. So you sue everybody, you sue hotel, you sue the management, you sue the UFC, you sue, you know, the manufacturer of that elevator. You just do it all, right? The groundskeeper, whoever owns the lease to the land, like it's just sue. And I don't think he got anything out of it. But the UFC at that point was like, fuck you. They booked him maybe one more time against like, who's that Russian bitch they matched him up against?
Khalid
like
Ziliev was like almost murdered him.
Murder Ziliev. Bro, they did him no favors and he got released. And I heard he wasn't faking that. I heard his back actually got fucked up.
Funny enough, you type in CB Dalloway on Google, and the first suggested thing that comes up is elevator, which is
it actually?
Yeah,
just type probably because your computer just heard us talking about it and it's like, man, Preet, he likes this on Amazon and he likes elevators and CB Dalloway.
There you go. All right, let's get back on track here, man. We'll see if Michael Johnson ends up in PFL, as is the greasy theory on this side now, but let's see how that goes. All right, next up, former foe of Michael Johnson, we got Clay Guida going up against the returning Scott Holtzman, who hasn't fought in over a year and a half. In terms of odds, we got minus 170 now on Scott Holtzman and plus 145 on Clay Guida. Scott Holtzman actually opened up around minus 190, got bet down to minus 145, and now is back up to around that minus 170 range. I think that this is a great matchup for him to come back to. I mean, I think that his grappling is good enough to deal with that style from Clay Guida. And then I think he's just a much more athletic and explosive fighter on the feet with the striking that he could potentially clip and end the night of Clay Guida before this even gets into the second or third rounds. I'm not saying that's my official prediction here, because I think his minus 170 betting line is relatively accurate of where it should be. So you're getting a good enough a price tag there. Personally speaking, my favorite prop that I put for this was Holtzman inside the distance. Maybe a club and sub situation transpires after he rocks Guida, but I do think that this is a Holtzman fight through and through. Holtzman inside the distance plus 215 is what that line currently sits at. Excuse me, but this isn't Michael Johnson, who's willingly going to allow him to land these takedowns and just kind of get stagnant and static and stay in a position. Holtzman will be moving around. Holtzman will provide enough resistance and good enough takedown defense that he can keep this fight standing. And then I think from there, he'll be able to outstrike Clay Guida, possibly finish him. But again, I prefer just sticking with the money line here and taking him straight up. What are you thinking here? Does Holtzman make a successful return, or does Clay the Carpenter Guida pick up another victory while being in his 40s?
Still 50-50 on this one. I'm actually attempting, we've been talking about insider information. I'm attempting to gain insider information. I have like a mutual friend with Scott Holtzman, and he's a straight shooter. I don't know what kind of shape he's in. If he's in shape, I think he's big, physically strong. He'll be able to maybe hopefully stuff some of these takedowns. And if he does, he boxes up Clay all day for sure. He's 39 years old. He's been off for a year and a half. He's been battling some injuries. There was possible retirement talk. None of that bodes particularly well. The other issue is that you look at his last 2 fights and it's creme de la creme. Man, he fought Neil Dariush. You're going to give him a pass in that spot. He fought Matus Gamrot. You're going to give him a pass in that spot. But traditionally, his takedown defense hasn't been very good. Gave up 5 takedowns to Drew Dober, takedown to Cody Pfister, 8 takedowns to Josh Emmett, 3 takedowns to Michael McBride, a takedown to Daryl Horcher, 5 takedowns to Nick Lentz, a takedown to little stun gun, Dong Young Ma.
No Dong is what I call him.
Yeah, the little Dong. Career not so good. He's been giving up takedowns, lots of takedowns in a lot of these spots. So, is it possible that Clay Guida could press him up against the cage, maybe search for a couple takedowns, and then once the fight does hit the ground, Guida's been working on his grappling a lot. Offensively, I think he's going to have the goods to maybe just neutralize and ground him and just kind of chip away at the guy. So, unless Holtzman's in excellent shape and, has made improvements and is healthy, it's hard to get a beat on him. And Clay's 41, but Clay fights all the time. Clay is who he is. So you kind of have a better read of what you're going to get out of Clay. Whereas Holtzman's 39. So the year and a half off, could it have done him some good? Yeah, absolutely. That same token is he going to have some ring rust on him? Is his body healthy at 39, or is he not battling a few injuries? Is this somebody that's, again, I don't know the information of this, but is he really just dying to compete? He wants to get in there and do the damn thing? Or is it kind of like, ooh, you know what? The UFC's offering me a quick little paycheck to fight an older veteran guy like Clay Guida. You know, might as well take one more kick at the can. Like, you don't quite know. So betting him would be considered a lot more dangerous to me. I think he could win the fight. I think you're saying inside the distance. I'm thinking more of a Holtzman by decision. But at the same time, I could see Clay Guida completing the takedowns on him and kind of putting him through the pace. So on my book, fight goes the distance is like minus 185. It's not good enough for me, right? That's a bad line, I would say, because they're both a little bit older. Holtzman used to be durable, but has been finished in his last couple. Clay's been durable too, but also has been finished the last couple times out. Not necessarily finished his last couple times out, but throughout the course of his career, you know, whether he gets submitted, his chin's not as good as it used to be. Few guys have been able to break through. And even that fight with Leo Santos that he won was on his way to losing at the same time in that first round. So I don't love that minus 185 fight goes the distance. But in terms of a one side or another, I don't know, man. I think Clay could win this fight with his wrestling. I'm going to lean maybe Holtzman, but I gotta get some inside information. What kind of shape is he in? Why is he taking this fight? There's just things that need to be known. Otherwise, it's just, you know, a kick in the can. There's the other crazy thing about gambling. We can move on here. If you're betting on like the Cincinnati Bengals, well, they played last week, so you kind of know where they're at, and they're going to give you an injury report and say the defensive tackle's out, the cornerback's out, whatever the case is. You know, you bet on a hockey team, it's like they've already played twice this week. You know who's on the first line. You know who's on the fourth line. They're going to announce who's playing net. MMA is like the only sport. The guy's just like coming off a 1.5 year long absence. He's 39 years old, and like you have to expect this guy to be at his best. Like that's just a risky proposition, right?
It could be, and you don't want to put your inside sources out there for the birds, Cody. But no, hopefully Scott is back in full condition, and it's a good matchup for him to come back to. Let's be honest.
I totally agree. And when I first saw the matchup, I was like, yo, Holtzman, if you remember the Jim Miller fight, because we've talked about his takedown defense not being great. In the Jim Miller fight, dude, he was a brick wall, man. Miller only shot 2, but Miller got nowhere close on them. That was the best Holtzman's looked. Then he fights world-class guys and loses. I'm not going to fault him for that. But yeah, 1.5 years off, some injuries, some time off. My inside guy, 6-1. Hot tips. So I'm hoping he's got one for me here.
Let's go. Let's see how that goes. All right. Next up, let's get to the women's strawweight division here. We have, I guess, she's not really a prospect because she's been around the scene for a while, but Emily Ducati hoping to make a successful second trip to the octagon here as she takes on her last opponent's best friend, Angela Hill. In terms of odds, we got minus 120 on Emily Ducati and plus 100 the return on Angela Hill. Very weird fight here, right? Like, I don't want to, I think people might be over exaggerating how good Ducati is because of her performance against Jessica Penne last time around. Like, she butchered that lead leg of her, almost finished her on numerous occasions just from calf kicks alone. But like, there's so much more to Ducati's game than just a calf kick, right? She's a decent striker. She's developing on a solid fight to fight basis, training with American Top Team. You know, her ground game is not that bad. Her takedowns are pretty good too. She's very athletic. She's explosive. And I think those physical advantages might be the reason she ends up getting her hand raised in this specific matchup. But Angela Hill, as she showed in her last fight against Lupita Godinez, she can still go out there and compete, you know, to the best of her ability. Now, I know a lot of people are just going to look at that. That's the box score, the stats page for that Angela Hill and Lupita Godinez fight and see that Lupi only shot 3 takedowns. But I think a lot of that was due to the fact that Angela Hill was doing a great job with her striking game to kind of keep Lupi away from those takedown attempts. And that's a lot of, you know, feinting the uppercuts, throwing the uppercut, feinting that knee up the middle, just always throwing something out there for Lupi to be concerned about, and then ultimately shut down the rest of the game of Lupi. Lupi's not, you know, a horrible striker. She's a decent striker, but I think that Ducati might have a little bit more tools on the feet, you know, especially with her kicking game and her combination striking. But I think that will allow her to set up those takedowns a little bit easier here, which should allow her to get this fight to the ground and then grind it out from there. I'll say this about Emily Ducati. I was close to kind of just writing her off after that 3-fight losing streak that she went on in Bellator. One which included her title fight loss, her second title fight loss to Alima Leigh McFarland. She lost a split decision to 1-0 Christina Williams at the time. And then ultimately her last fight with Bellator, she loses against Vita Ortega. At that point, I was like, okay, she's not what I thought she was going to be. Then she pulls off a couple of victories, and her only loss in the, you know, her last was at 3, 6, 7 fights 8 fights was against Kanako Murata, who's not a bad fighter. You know, I mean, she's a strong wrestler. She's a strong grappler. It's unfortunate she got her arm broke by Verna Jandiroba last time around, but she is a tough out for a lot of opponents. And I thought Emily did the best she could in that matchup, lost a split decision there. But I think she has some solid upside, right? She's 28 years old, and she was only, she was only 23 when she went on that 3-fight losing streak in Bellator. You can make leaps and bounds of improvements in 5 years, in 4 to 5 years. You can make so many improvements, especially when you align yourself with the right team. And I think that's what she's done with American Top Team over her last several fights. And that's why I think we're seeing a better version of her moving forward here. So yes, Angela Hill is always left to pull off the upset. And again, the odds are very close here, but I do think the person with the better upside and likely more paths to victory is going to be Emily Ducati here. I'm a little bit concerned in terms of paying, her as the favorite in the spot, but I don't really see how she finishes this fight. So the best way of attacking it, probably just taking her by decision, which has her currently around plus 140. I feel a little bit more comfortable taking that than taking her money line, but I do think that she'll showcase way more tools here. Takedowns, combination striking, feints, level changes, all that stuff, and that should allow her to put together a better body of work over 15 minutes to get her hand raised by decision, which is the prop that I'm going to go with for this matchup. What about yourself?
Yeah, okay, so not a whole lot of investment. Again, I think this is a pretty tightly contested fight, so I'm going to get a little greasy with it, I think. But listen, Ducati, I never wrote this girl off. You mentioned those 3 losses in Bellator. They're all at 125 pounds. So she's lost up a weight class. Christina Williams, bad record. She's huge. This is a big, big, strong girl who's known as the Iron Horse for a reason, man. Just chops you down with like a kick arsenal, big time kick arsenal. Ducati's tough, man. The only loss at this weight class is the Kanako Murata fight, which you mentioned, which is a championship fight, and strong argument that she won that fight. So I feel like she's definitely coming to her own, and she's someone that very well rounded, right? Has that wrestling background, wrestled in college, used to train with Rafael Lovato Jr. in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu out of Oklahoma. Very solid grappling pedigree. Comes over to American Top Team. Striking is on point. That Invicta FC win over Danielle Taylor. God damn! That's like a KO of the year contender, right? She's kind of putting it all together. So there's a lot that you can like about Emily Ducati. My one issue, tiny little issue against her, is like her ring IQ seems to be a little bit questionable at times. Like for someone who is that good of a wrestler, she won't often go to her offensive wrestling. She doesn't shoot a whole lot from the outside. Likes to strike, likes to brawl, likes to push the pace and push the pressure. But again, you're leaving openings because you're not fighting the path of least resistance. When I look at Angela Hill, all of Angela Hill's fights are extremely competitive. She's fought much higher level. She's way more experienced than Emily Ducati. But beyond all that is that she's in competitive fights. Now, when you look at Angela Hill, that last fight with Lupita Godinez, very close, very tightly contested. She was more than a plus 200 underdog against Godinez, and she cashed. If you're going to get her plus money, she's available to cash. But even like the Amanda Lemos fight, split decision, very close. She could have won it. The Michelle Watterson fight, split decision. She could have won that. The Claudia Gadelha fight, split decision. I thought she did win that one. She's got a plethora of these Courtney Casey split decision. She's got 4 or 5 split decisions on her record. Most of her fights go to decision. They are closely contested. They are, good fights. Against Ducati, I think her takedown defense is good enough that she'll stuff more takedowns than not. Her striking is good enough that she's competitive with almost anybody. And someone's going to win this fight, no doubt. Someone has to win this fight. But I got a nagging suspicion it's going to be by split decision. And so Angela Hill to win a split decision is plus 700. And Emily Ducati to win a split decision or majority. It's split or majority. Hill's a plus 700. Ducati's a plus 750. I think this thing's going to the distance, but it goes the distance line's just too juiced up at this point. The over 2.5, way too juiced up at this point. Each fighter to win respectively by decision, still really not all that good. But the split decision has got me extremely intrigued. Because similar as Charles Johnson's fight from 2 weeks ago, right? They're close decision type fights. His opponent's been in 4 or 5 split decision fights. So why wouldn't this be a split decision? It's going to be close. It's going to be tightly contested. They might screw him. They always seem to screw the poor guy. They did screw the poor guy. And Johnson wins that split decision. But it's going to be close. It's going to be subjective. Why not just try to take that big home run? So similar to hitting a 3rd round finish type prop or one of these big 10-1 type props, I almost feel like whoever side of this coin that you end up landing on, maybe try to get a little greasy with it and take them to win specifically on a split or a majority.
Yeah, usually with these types of fights, that's kind of how it goes. That's my holdup in terms of actually betting aside here. But yeah, I mostly agree with you in that fight. Let's see if Ducati can actually make a successful second fight in the UFC, though. All right, let's get to this next matchup here, which goes down between two welterweights, and this is actually the prelim headliner that we got. Great fight here between two Floridians. We got Nico Price going up against Phil Rowe. In terms of odds, we got minus 135 on Nico Price and plus 115 the return on Phil Rowe. Now, Nico Price, this guy has fought everybody in welterweight, right? Like from the Cowboys to the Vicente Luques twice. Yeah, I mean to the George Sullivans, even from back in the day. Like the guy goes out there and fights pretty much anybody. His physical traits are largely why he's been so successful, man. He's very athletic, very explosive, has a ton of power, can generate power from crazy positions as well. Just ask James, I want to say James Cross, goddammit. I meant James Vick and Randy Brown, who obviously got finished by that weird, up punch hammer fist position that Nico Price was able to take advantage of. But that's what I think it's going to come down to, is kind of the experience and getting dragged into crazy wars and fights. And yes, Phil Rowe was in a bit of a war against Gabe Green and then a little bit of a war against Kosi as well. But I don't think he's prepared for what's coming his way against Nico Price. Nico has thrived off of those spots, right? His first 11 fights in the UFC, all finishing inside the distance, whether it's him getting the kill or going out on his shield. His last 3 fights all have gone to a decision, but not, it doesn't exclude the fact that he's still going out there and trying to get the finish against these guys. He does like dragging fights to the ground, and I think that's an approach he'll look to take here, as Phil Rowe might be that cleaner striker here. But given some of the advantages he'll have in terms of physically speaking with his size and range and being able to utilize his striking game, I think Nico Price will be better served to drag this fight to the ground. And from there, I think he'll have a good enough shot to get into those dominant positions and possibly find that finish against Phil Rowe. I think Rowe still needs a little bit more experience and seasoning before he can beat a guy like Nico Price, personally speaking. And he might have some technical advantages over him, but I still think he's going to struggle with getting that technical advantage going. He needs that space to work. He needs that the space so that he can set up his timing and his combinations to truly have success. Nico Price is going to give him none of that. I think he's going to be in his face the entire time. And then whether it's with takedowns or whether it's with punches, I think he eventually gets him out of there with some sort of TKO of some sort. So I'm kind of tempted on the under, but it's all the way up to minus 170 now. But I did end up taking a shot on Nico Price earlier this week around that minus 140 range, just because I think he's more experienced, more tested at this point in time. And Phil Rowe needs one of these types of battles to truly elevate himself to that next level of his game. I just don't think he comes out with his hand raised, though. So I'll go Nico Price inside the distance. But I don't mind Nico Price minus 140 straight up either. What are you thinking here?
This is just another one that, it looks good on paper. Nico Price probably goes out there and beats Phil Rowe. I just don't know that it's that straightforward. So I like Nico Price as much as the next guy. But fact is he's got like 9 kids, right? His life's obviously quite busy. And I don't think his body's operating at the same level as it used to be. You look at, he had 3 fights in 2017 for the UFC. He had 3 fights in 2018 for the UFC. He had 3 fights in 29 for the UFC. 3 fights in 2019, for the UFC. In 2020, 2 fights. 2021, 2 fights. 2022, 1 fight. So you just see like slowly, it's like, man, he used to compete all the time. Then he competes a little bit less. Now he's had some wars. Now he's got to take some time off. Now he's had some injuries. I don't know that he's at, the highest caliber of Nico Price. You look back, you can actually see it happen in real time, right? His losses are murderous, right? Abdul Razak Al Hassan, damn, dude, that was a nasty knockout. Like, he got destroyed there. And then his fight with Jeff Neal, he got knocked out pretty good against Jeff Neal. But it's the Vicente Luque fight where he took all the damage of a 3-round beating and then got knocked out with like less than 90 seconds left in the 3rd round. It seemed like he was a little bit different when he came back from that. The Donald Cerrone fight, he was a big favorite on paper. He got a point deducted, which is why it ended up being a draw, but it wasn't like a clear runaway. I mean, they did an interview together after the fight, and Nico Price's face is a mess against an aged Donald Cerrone. And so that's kind of his problem. He's an all-action guy, but he gets hit way too often. And to be an all-action guy, you need that strong durability. And yet here's a guy that is kill or be killed. He'll either knock you out But I mean, he's not the most durable guy going. He could get knocked out himself. So it seemed like it just kind of started compounding on him. Michel Pereira fight, not bad. His last time out, he gets a win. He gets back in the win column. I didn't think he looked great in the first round, but he did what he had to do against another aged guy, Brazilian cowboy, Alex Oliveira. And then that was, his last fight for about a year. So is he healthy? Is he motivated? Does he got these different issues going on? I'm not sure. But Philip Rowe, it's easy to look past him. The intangibles are he's 6'3" with an 80-inch reach, man. He's extremely long. This fight being in Florida, not the Apex, he's going to be in the large cage. The way to beat Phil Rowe is what everybody else is doing is just take him down and grind him down. I don't know that Nico Price is going to do that. Again, he's more of an all-action guy himself. He wants to throw down. He's got friends and family in the crowd. He lives off the roar of the crowd. So if he doesn't go out there and take Phil Rowe down and gets into these striking exchanges, can he beat him? Yeah, he can beat him. But he's also playing with fire because keep in mind, Rowe hasn't been doing too bad in the stand-up department. He's getting taken down, sure, but in those little moments of stand-up, he's landing excellent with his boxing. Good combinations, good volume. Again, using that 80-inch reach to a strong effect. His last couple, the Orion Koski fight, once he got taken down the first, second round, doesn't get taken down, puts his hands to good use, knocks him out. In his last fight against Jason Witt, much of the same, got taken down early in that first round. Second round, goes out there and knocks him. He's a BJJ black belt. Defensively, he's sound enough that if he does get taken down, he can survive. It's when he gets up, he's got to get going. So I almost feel like pass for me, or I'm going to look at the live betting spot here. Philip Rowe is a terribly slow starter. He pretty much loses every first round in the UFC, takes his time, gauges his opponent, and then he gets going. Nico Price, meanwhile, is a bit of a fast starter. He gets after it early and often. Nico wins this fight probably by first round knockout. If Nico does not finish him in the first round, I almost get the sense that Rowe's got good cardio, he's long, and he's going to just start putting in work, touching him up, doing damage, and that accumulative damage is going to have an effect and wear down on Nico Price. So, again, 15-fight card. I feel like this one is a bit of a trap spot. I want to bet Nico Price. I got a feeling that the underdog's going to come through and shit my apple pie, so I'm going to largely take a pass on it. But if I had to take one specific side, I'm thinking fight doesn't go the distance, under 2.5. Nico's either going to catch him and knock him out with something, or I think Rowe's just going to start putting together those ripping combinations. He's got a killer instinct when he does sense blood in the water. My thing is, if he can put that pace on for 15 minutes in a striking exchange, maybe he'll have some success.
Yeah, it's a big test, honestly, to see where Nico Price is really at in his career, whether he's completely fallen off or whether Phil Rowe can actually go out there, do the damn thing, and add a solid name to his resume as well. All right, that is a wrap on the prelims. Shout out to the 100 live viewers that we currently have with us on this Thursday afternoon, or Thursday evening, I should say. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Drop a comment below as well to let the All-Star folks know that you guys appreciate us on their platform. And also make sure you guys check out their All-Star app, which pretty much will have you covered on all the news, all the happenings in the MMA world, sports world as well, and you can customize it to your liking. I promise you guys will like it. Link in the description below. Android, Apple, whatever it is, it's got you covered. All right, let's get right to the main card. I believe it is a 6-fight main card, and the first fight takes place in the middleweight division. We got Eryk Anders coming in as a plus 190 underdog, minus 225 the return on Kyle Dalkus. Now, Dalkus, no stranger to fumbling the bag as a minus 200 favorite. That's what happened last time when he got knocked out by Roman Delizé in the opening minutes of the first fight, or the first round, sorry. And he just couldn't deal with the pace and pressure that Roman was putting on him there. Kyle, at his best, utilizes that front choke series, the Doris, the Anaconda. He likes to call himself the Doris Knight, for God's sakes. But, you know that he wants to get the fight to the ground, get his grappling going. That's where he does his best work. His striking game, still improving. There's still a lot of work to be done there, as was obviously on display in his last matchup. But I think that we got to give him more time to continue to develop those skills so that I can become a well-rounded mixed martial artist. I don't really understand the minus 200 line on him always. Like, the kid obviously has some flaws still. And yes, maybe technically speaking, he's better than Eryk Anders here, but he's showcased in fights prior, similar to the Phil Haas fight, that if you can out physical this guy, you could probably win this fight. And that's Eryk Anders' style. Like, we saw it in the Jun Yoon Park fight, and a lot of people think he got robbed in that fight. But close fight. I thought Park was the one that was actually doing the damage, which is the main criteria to winning a fight. And he outstruck him by nearly 50 significant strikes, if I'm not mistaken. But seeing the tenacity in which Eric Anders was just trying to engage in the clinch, trying to get takedowns and control his opponent there, make me believe that he could potentially pull off the upset here against Kyle Dalkus. Now, I didn't make that my official prediction, but the line continuously moving in the direction of Kyle Dalkus is making me a little bit more intrigued on the Eric Anders side. Like if it hits plus 200, I might have to take a little bit of a shot there because we've seen Eric Anders' style work against Kyle Dalkus in the past. And yes, Eric Anders got submitted by Andre Nunes, who in my opinion is more of an offensive natured and minded jiu-jitsu player compared to Kyle Dalkus, who doesn't mind taking his time. And in taking his time, leaves openings for his opponents to get out of those bad positions. And that's where I think that Eric Anders could capitalize on. What it comes down to me, though, is, well, two things. I like the over 2.5, which I believe is currently sitting around that minus 180 range. Fight to go to decision, minus 150. Not too bad. But I think it's like the Jun Young Park fight where the damage might end up being the difference maker here. Eric Anders is probably clinging on to him too much. Kyle Dalkus trying to rein the damage, just as he did against Phil Hawes, right? He was getting damage off even while being controlled, but it was ultimately too much that Phil Hawes was still able to get his hand raised. But this fight is too close to be paying minus 200 on Kyle Dalkus, is what I'm trying to say, right? There's a potential that Eric Anders gets a knockout. There's a potential that Kyle Dalkus gets a submission. But I think both of those things are going to get nullified here by Eric Anders taking that approach of grinding and slowly chipping away at Kyle Dalkus and maybe making it a little bit sketchy once it hits the scorecards. But that's why I like the fight goes to decision at minus 150. I think it hits the scorecards. I don't think that there's going to be much time for these guys to get off much damage or much fight-ending actions, which will allow this fight to go to decision. I'll still pick Dalkus as my prediction, but don't be surprised if I end up having some money on Eric Anders should he hit that plus 200 mark, because I think at that point, the odds are just way too out of whack. But fight goes to decision, minus 150, my favorite prop for this fight. What about yourself?
My man, you basically took my thoughts 100%. Eric Anders is super talented, man. He seems to have power. He seems to have takedown defense. He seems to pace himself out okay, and yet the results are just not there in the ring. He's looking to cling on guys, push him up against the cage. I did not think he won that last fight against Park. I understand some people do. He got soundly outstruck by the numbers, right, in all 3 rounds. He got outlanded handedly in all 3 rounds. Overall, he got outstruck 105 to 65, and yet people thought he won. Why? Because he's pushing the other guy up against the cage? Because he got a couple short-lived takedowns? It's just not enough for me. This is a prison fight, and you're like, yo, the other guy got on top of the other guy and got stabbed in the neck from the bottom. Like, well, did he win? Did he win the prison fight because he got on top of the other guy in the yard? No. He got stabbed. Homies shanked him off his back, right? It's the offense. That's the only thing that matters. You're trying to fight. It's a fist fight. So Anders, as much as the guy is a fighter, I've seen him go out there and get into nasty wars with Thiago Santos or Khalil Roundtree. Like, he took beatings in those fights. Like, he showed heart, but when he's in there, he's not looking to land, man. He's not looking out to outwork you. The first fight with Darren Stewart, yeah, he looked awesome. The weight was really good. That was his fight. First came at Fight Ready MMA. Holy shit, the guy looked good. Immediate rematch because he got himself a no contest off of a legal knee. And an immediate rematch, and he looked like shit. The Muniz fight, quickly submitted. His last fight with Park, clinging on to him the whole time. It's just not, I couldn't get behind him. Even if you gave a good plus money underdog tag, I don't know that I could get behind him. I want to love Eric Anders. Just can't at this point. But the fight goes the distance, minus 150. God damn, that I do like. If Anders has got anything, he is durable. The fight with Thiago Santos, it was a 5-round fight. Technically, he made it the 3-round distance because he made it 3 full rounds at that type of beating. The guy can't take a shot. Submission defense has never been an issue. Taking him down, is difficult in its own right. I feel like there's a lot that he could do in terms of just stalling this fight out. And when Dalkus, you nailed all the points on that as well. I mean, he's got the submission grappling advantage. He's got the striking output advantage. But one thing about him is he's not that physical in the clinch. And Anders thrives on just out-strengthening his opponents in the clinch. So this thing will be a greasy. I can see the fans booing. I don't think it's going to be super entertaining. Anders is going to have lots of control time against the cage. And the same people that complain that he got robbed in his last fight will probably complain that he got robbed in this fight too. But it's going to come down to the subjectiveness of those 3 judges. Who are those 3 judges? Do they like control? Do they like damage? Do they like work rate? Do they like output? Do they like volume? I'm thinking they're going to go with that because they're Floridians, right? They want to hear the ruckus roar of the crowd. I think they'll lean towards Dalkus and him working, but I can see long periods of him getting stifled up against the cage by Anders, and of course that could score. So just to save me on either side, I think the fight's just going to go the distance. If Dalkus wins, he's going to outland him. He's going to land those chipping little shots. The judges will side with that. If Anders wins, he's going to have the control time. The judges will side with that. In both scenarios, I don't necessarily think the other guy puts either guy puts each other away.
Yeah, I'm glad that we're pretty much on the same wavelength for that fight. Curious to see how it plays out come Saturday night. All right, let's move on to the next fight. And we kind of spoke about this guy in the last breakdown. Roman Delizé comes in, steps in on short notice here for an injured Derek Brunson. He takes on the biggest test of his career to this point. He goes up against Jack Hermanson. In terms of odds, we got -195 on Jack Hermanson and +165 on Roman Delizé. Now, this fight has me the most confused, right? Like, I know Jack Hermanson's a great fighter, and he's a top 5 to 7 middleweight, and that's something that you can always rely on, but there are times where he's been broken and flustered, and Roman Delizé, with all the lack of skill at time, like it usually gets made up for his born to fight mentality, right? Like this guy is an actual fighter. He likes to go out there and legitimately fight. Maybe not so much in that Laureano Staropoli fight where he clinched him the entire time, but like when he wants to put the pressure on you, you definitely feel it. And I feel like Jack Hermanson is one of those guys that could potentially break after feeling something like that. But I still think that Jack Hermanson is the overall better fighter. Whether it comes down to him trying to improve upon his 20-something% takedown accuracy by looking to tackle a grapple heavy approach here, or going out there and going for a bike ride like he did against Chris Curtis, he has more ways of winning this fight. Roman Delizé still does many things that cause a coach to kind of like bang their head against the wall. But like those same things are the reasons he ends up winning his fights. But I think that's going to be his ultimate downfall here against a guy like Jack Hermanson, who's just a little bit too well-rounded for him. I still do lean with the Hermanson side as an official pick. But in terms of like props, fight goes to decision. -120. That's not bad, man. Jack Hermanson is a tough guy to put away, and so is Roman Delizé. I'd be surprised if either guy ends up finding a finish here, unless it's Roman knowing that he's not fully prepared for this matchup, considering the fact that he took it on short notice, so he just goes out there guns a-blazing. If he just goes out there and, he just allows Jack Hermanson to do his thing, for sure this fight goes the full 15 minutes. So I'm going to go Hermanson by decision here. Like I said, he likely will have the output advantage, likely will have the movement and wrestling advantage. Jiu-jitsu probably in Hermanson's favor as well, but not by a whole lot. But Hermanson to win by decision, sitting at +140, I'd rather take that than the near -200 on his straight up money line here. So yeah, I'll go Jack. Fight goes to decision as well. -120, not a bad line. What are you thinking here, Cody? You usually like your overs and fights to go to decision. We agreed on it in the last middleweight matchup. Do you agree on it with this middleweight matchup?
Yeah, 100% I do. Listen, Jack Hermanson showed in his last fight Chris Curtis that he can be extremely risk adverse and just stay to the outside, skirt away if he wants and stay out of range. So yeah, he can play this on the safe approach, but I think he's got multiple paths of victory to beating Roman Delizé, who's got a big uphill battle ahead of him to climb here. And I think he gets the job done. I do like the overs. I think that Jack Hermanson gets the job done probably by decision. You can have that between +115, +130 range. And I feel like that's what I'm going with this week. I like Jack Hermanson a number of reasons. When you look at Roman Delizé, first and foremost, 6 fights in the UFC, okay? In those 6 fights, he's landed a combined 122 significant strikes. Jack Hermanson has landed over 400 significant strikes in his last 4 fights, okay? Volume is not even fucking questionable here. Roman's highest output fight is he landed 51 against John Allen, 15 minutes. He landed 32 against Trevin Giles, 15 minutes. He landed 14 against Staropoli, 15 minutes. He's a super low output guy. Now, what the UFC's done is his last couple of fights, he's been able to capitalize on guys that maybe had some durability issues. Kyle Dalkus, he clips him. He only needed 8 strikes in that fight, knocks him out. Phil Haas super chinny, so he needs those 18 strikes. He knocks him out. If you don't get that quick knockout from Delizé and he's forced to extend himself over 15 minutes, he's super low output. He's not going to go out there and get into these big exchanges. Whereas Hermanson has shown he can do it for 3 rounds. He can do it for 5 rounds. He's got excellent output. He's got excellent pace. The other thing is Roman Dolidze, everyone says, oh, he's a grappler. He's BJJ black belt. He won that ADCC Oceania title. And, guy used to fight as a heavyweight and this and that and the other. His takedown defense is like less than 50%. He gives up takedowns in pretty much all of his fights. He gave up 1 to Phil Hawes. He gave up 3 to Liano Staropoli, a welterweight. A welterweight with no wrestling background took him down 3 times. John Allen took him down. Trevin Giles took him down. And he's rocking a 33% takedown defense. So if Jack wants him down, Jack can take him down. If Jack wants to stand with him, Jack will stand with him. If Jack wants to grapple with him, Jack will grapple with him. Jack beats him every way this thing takes place. Now I think, Jesus, it's MMA. So puncher's chance for sure. Dolidze, big old strong, thick Georgian guy, could happen. Of course it could happen. The only guys that have knocked Jack Hermanson out is Thiago Santos and Jared Cannonier. So, I mean, he's in pretty good company. Guy can take a shot. Guy's smart, high ring IQ, knows how to play to his opponents. And this is not even his original opponent. It's a guy that took the fight on a week's notice and literally just fought a few weeks ago. So it's not going to be the best version of him. So training partner of Chris Curtis. Maybe Chris Curtis has got some ideas about how to cut the cage off from Jack Hermanson. But other than that, I think Hermanson just has his way, stays at the outside, mixes in some takedowns, and gets the job done by decision. That's the prop I like as well.
Perfect. I love that approach here. And great points about, Delidze's lack of takedown defense at times. Now he's going up against one of the better wrestlers that he's faced. Hermanson could likely have that advantage should he choose to take it.
Did you watch the Hermanson versus Chimaev wrestling match that they had online a few months back?
I didn't, but I heard it was, a little bit more competitive than people thought it would have been.
First couple minutes, it's like Chimaev is a beast. The longer it goes, it's like, dude, Jack is legit, man. He's solid cardio, super professional, and knows exactly what he's doing, right? So to me, it's the same thing. Dolidze is extremely explosive and powerful, but Jack will figure it out, work around it, and he's multiple paths of victory. Could wrestle, could strike, could grapple. Just for the love of God, don't get clipped with one of those big old Georgian haymakers.
I also just want to say before we move on to the next one, shout out to the live chat. Y'all are just amazing. I mean, I don't normally go to the live chat and show the comments on the screen just to keep the flow of our show, continuous, especially for people that watch this after the fact and even the audio listeners. But I love the fun that you guys are having in there because it just makes my job a whole lot easier as well. All right, Cody, let's get back on track here because we got heavyweights coming up, and it's between a Tai Tuivasa who comes in at plus 185 and minus 215 on Sergey Pavlovich, who's been on a absolute tear in terms of getting first round knockouts. He went out there last time around and put away the Black Beast in 55 seconds at UFC 277. I believe that took place in the hometown of Derek Lewis. So not a good look for him there. But before that, he had 3 straight first round knockout victories over Marcelo Gom, Maurice Green, and Shamil Abdurakhimov. Safe to say that Tai Tuivasa is likely the best fighter he's fought in the UFC outside of his UFC debut against Alistair Overeem, which he obviously lost. But he's been on an absolute tear. On the flip side for Tai Tuivasa, he had that tremendous victory over Derek Lewis back in February, but unfortunately was scheduled to fight Cyril Gane back in September and came up short in that matchup. I'm sure a lot of people saw that coming in. Obviously, the odds were an indication of that as well, as he was a plus 425 underdog that night. But man, that fight was that was a war. It was not as clean as I think Cyril Gane would have liked it to be, but he still managed to get his hand raised over a tough out like Tai Tuivasa. This fight has me completely mystified, man, because you could get, you've seen Sergey Pavlovich go out there and win decisions on the regional scene. You've seen Tai Tuivasa go out there and win decisions on the, even in the UFC. With his kick-heavy attack and throwing big punches, that's really all it is. But, we can see a scenario where Sergey Pavlovich stays safe on the outside and just picks him apart with his cleaner striking, maybe mixes in some clinching and gets some wrestling going. I don't think that this is going to be one of those spots where Sergey just goes balls to the wall from the jump and tries to get him out of there, because this is not Maurice Green. This is not Derek Lewis, who seems to be on the downside of his career at this point in time. This is not Shamil Abdurakhimov, who's fucking 40-something, coming off of so many injuries and layoff. This is Tai Tuivasa, who's going to throw back. So more often than not, when you have 2 big strikers like this, you could see that waiting game, that patience game, where both these guys are just a little bit too scared to throw big power at each other in hopes of not getting clipped and getting put away and halting the momentum, especially on the Sergey Pavlovich side, who's on a 4-fight winning streak. Whereas Tai Tuivasa, he doesn't want to get 2 losses in a row, even if the first loss was to a guy like Cyril Gane. So, like, something in the back of my head is like this fight likely leaks into the second round, maybe leaks into the third round, as both guys are just trying to be disciplined and not get knocked out. The over 1.5 right now currently sits at plus 170. Bet Online has it all the way up to plus 195. I see it. All the makings, and based on the recent outings of these guys, would make you believe that the under 1.5 is the way to go here. But like, you always have to remember that usually when you have power strikers going up against power strikers, there is the chance that both guys are going to respect each other too much, and that finishing sequence early does not transpire. I'll lean with the Pavlovich side, as I do believe he has a little bit more paths to victory. Minus 215, I'm okay without that, even though I believe he is that much better than Tai Tuivasa. If I am sprinkling anything on this fight, it's that over 1.5. Maybe even Pavlovich by decision at plus 800. Just a little bit of a salt-based sprinkle on that one. But the over 1.5 is the gun to my head pick that I'm going to make as a prop. Over 1.5 plus 170. That's what I'm going to go with. What are you thinking here?
I'm going to go gun to my head pick Tai Tuivasa by knockout. But I dig what you're going with. Yeah, I dig what you're saying with Pavlovich as well. The insider scoop on him is that his two best weapons are his cardio and his wrestling. And yet what we've seen from him, he never wrestles and is a one-round guy. So if the guy can wrestle and he has 15-minute cardio like he showed on the regional scene, the Russian regional scene where EPO is legal, if he's got cardio and he can wrestle, yeah, he probably does kick the crap out of Tai Tuivasa, right? Exploit him a little bit. But I don't know, man. I'm going to go with the theory of this is a guy that's extremely heavily muscled, 260 pounds of ripped up muscle, and all of his fights end in the first round. The Overeem debut, first round. Gordon, Maurice Green, Shamil Abdurakhimov, Derek Lewis, everybody other than Derek Lewis considered lower level. I like Shamil Abdurakhimov, but older and not on a great run. Yeah, he's beating them in the first round. He's putting that pressure on them. But are we confident that he can fight into the second? Are we confident that he can fight into the third? Because here's my biggest knock on him, right? He's fought in lower level competition. He comes out like a bat on fire, and he finishes them. The one time you've seen him have to be the nail against Overeem, he crumpled up, man. He crumpled up fast. Now, here's the thing with Tai. Tai's been in some greasy spots, some little bit of adversity spots. Right? That fight with Greg Hardy, he gets rocked. He does the stanky leg. He comes back, he clips him, knocks him out. His own fight with Derek Lewis, the first round, he gets clipped. He's into some bad spots. He perseveres. He gets to that second round. He takes out Derek Lewis. Even his fight with Cyril Gane, he's taking on the best guy in the world. One good decision away from beating Francis Ngannou. Why the fuck did he fall in that leg lock in the 5th round, bro? Fuck me, man.
That is the question of 2022.
I'll never understand that. People are always like, dude, Francis is wrestling won him that fight. It's like, no, it isn't. Francis Gane's stupid-ass ring IQ. Yeah, like, bro, it was 2-2 in the 5th round. Why the hell would you fall on a goddamn ankle lock?
You didn't see the scissor sweep from Francis, though? I swear it was a sweep.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Unbelievable, my luck. Anyways, all good. What I'm saying is he's taking on like the best heavyweight, a guy that just dictates range, manages range so good, and he's able to take a round off him. He dropped him. He hurt him. He brought some decent pressure to him. You're talking about a Cyril Gane who's fought in Francis Ngannou. He's fought in Jairzinho Rosenstruck. He's fought in Derek Lewis. He's fought in conceivably all the heaviest power punches in the division and is on record saying Tai's the heaviest hitting guy I've been in there with. So in terms of you can never get a Tuivasa plus money, he's live. He's live because he's got a puncher's chance. He's quite literally the definition of a puncher's chance. So at plus money, I'm willing to give him a shot. The other thing is, again, if he gets hit and he gets hurt, we've seen that he's been able to battle through. If he clips Pavlovich, I don't know that Pavlovich is going to stand his ground and be like, let's throw down, as much as he might cower back a little bit, Great hammer, not the greatest nail. So I need Tai to get in his face, push him back, kind of be aggressive. You're right. Two heavyweights, they respect each other. Maybe they'll take their times. Did Pavlovich take his time against Derek Lewis? No. And everybody takes their time against Derek Lewis. God damn, why would you want to get all up in that guy's face in the first 3 minutes? But I feel like Pavlovich if it's not broke, don't fix it mentality. I'm beating guys in the first round. I'm beating guys, being the hammer, being the pressure, being the pace setter. Go and get these guys, right? So if he runs into Tai stands his ground and lands on him, I think it could be a problem. So small sprinkle stuff. I'm taking a small stab on Tai Tuivasa by first round knockout plus 500. I'm taking a small stab on Tai Tuivasa by second round knockout at plus 900.
I'm going to say this just in defense of Sergey Pavlovich's cardio, which a lot of people seem to be kind of ragging on. The guy's gone a 15-minute decisions. God damn it, got to get my words out. He's gone 15-minute decision twice in his career on the regional scene, as well as a 25-minute decision once in his past as well when he fought for, I believe it was either M1 or it was Fight Night Global that he went the decision. So like we just see the UFC career and we see those first round knockouts and the one time that he lost to Overeem, but like he's shown that he can go to 15 or 25 minutes. Again, now he's under USADA. Who knows what he was doing back in the day? Maybe he was on the EPO, like my guy Dan Goldstein is saying, because apparently it's illegal not to be on EPO in Russia, according to him. But who knows? He's done it before. It's not like he can't do it again.
Yeah, that's fair, but I keep going back to my own boy, Alexander Romanov. I was like, yo, I like this guy a lot. And he was like, well, can he fight into the third round? It's like, yo, watch this fight at Eagle FC 10 where he fights Sultan Mirzaliev and he beats him in the third round by TKO and he looks great in the third round doing it. The guy's got cardio. Yeah. Then you see the Juan Espino fight, you're like, holy shit, homie got no cardio. But he did that one time in Russia when he had Moldovan supplements fired up through his veins. And then I give him a pass. And then his last fight against Marcin Tybura, it's like egg on my face. Like, yo, this guy has no cardio. But he did on the Russian regional when the guy wasn't giving him any pushback, when he wasn't facing any adversity, when he didn't have to work, when he just got the positions he wanted and he could lie into them, when he could take whatever he wanted. Yeah, that was him at his best, no doubt about it. Him when it's like a dude's knocking on your door at 4 a.m. telling you to piss in a cup. Yeah, maybe not him at his best. Kind of get the impression here out of Pavlovich. The way he's jacked up, right? You're going to mean to tell me he got that jacked eating liver and eggs? Yeah. Okay, pal. Sure. He's a freakish. Yeah. He's actually got an 84-inch reach. Like he's built like, you've obviously seen Rocky 4, right? Son of a bitch, Ivan Drago's like in the lab and he's like all hooked up to the machinery and it's like, and they're like, bro, that's Pavlovich, man. He's 6'3" with an 84-inch reach. He's built like Brock Lesnar. Apparently, he's got cardio. He can wrestle, and he's got power like you wouldn't believe. He's like the perfect guy, right? But how did you beat Ivan Drago? Adversity. Rocky Balboa had to bring it to his ass. Had to get beat up for a couple rounds. I get it. But he brought it to his ass. Philly style. I need Ty to do the same shit. And if he wins, right? What better state to do a shoey than Florida? They're going to love it, man.
I hate Ty Tuivasa fight weeks because of the goddamn shoey. You know, I despise those things. I know you don't mind a shoey every now and then, but goddamn, I hate that thing. It's just so, it makes me want to puke. Is all I gotta say. All right, let's get back on track here. We got 3 fights left to wrap up this card. The next takes place in we were in the biggest division in the UFC. Now we're gonna go to the smallest division, at least for men's. We're gonna be talking about the flyweights here, where we have Matthias Nicolau coming in as a -365 favorite. He goes up against Matt Danger Schnell, who comes in at +300. Now, we might have like moment/round of the year from Matt Schnell's last fight against Sumadarju, where he looked like he was on legs or on wobbly legs or, you know, bandy on ice essentially for the majority of that second round until he managed to reverse the tables on Sumadarju, rock him, hurt him, get him to the ground, and then eventually find that submission victory. Great win for him there. You know what I mean? But like, it's everything leading up to it, which is why everybody has such skeptical hippo eyes at him, right? Like, it's just like, hey, like, we know you can be hurt. We know you can be put away. How are you going to deal with it against a guy who's more well-rounded like Matthias Nicolau? That's the big question. Now, I'll say this. I'm a big fan of Nicolau, right? I've cashed big tickets on him in the past, but like when you watch his fights are a little bit closer than you would expect them to be, right? The Manel Cap fight, really close. The Tim Elliott fight. If it wasn't for goddamn James Krause telling Tim Elliott to take his foot off the gas in that third round, Tim Elliott probably.
I wonder why he did that.
The plot thickens.
Go on. Dude, you totally got this shit in the bag, bro. What you really need to do is just hold on from your back and do fuck all. That's what you need to do right now. Great advice.
But you know, like these fights are closer than they should be, and like everybody wants to shit on Matt Schnell, right? Like the guy, he's chinny, he can't take a shot, blah blah blah. But like we saw in the Tyson Nam fight, where can he stay standing? Can his durability hold up? He has a mean striking game. Like he throws in combinations. He has speed. He has good head movement, good footwork. Like he does very well in those spots. And if Nicolau can't either drag this fight to the ground or hurt Schnell, things could get a little bit fishy. But like, I don't want to go out there and put my money on Matt Schnell and trust that durability, because like it just does not look good. You remember those shots that Sumodarji was landing on him? Just like every elbow he hit him with, he's just wobbling like he just took fucking 7 shots of tequila in a row. Like it doesn't look good. So that's my qualm here and hold up in terms of like trying to seek the value on Matt Schnell. And then on the flip side, when Nicolau, I kind of already alluded to it. Like if he doesn't knock him down, knock him out, or take this fight to the ground, that's where things start to get shaky for him. That's where this fight plays out closer than the odds suggest. I'm still picking Nicolau to win, but I think the best way to extract as much value as you can out of him in this spot is to take him to win inside the distance, right? That's how most people expect him to get his hand raised here. Plus 120 for Nicolau to win inside the distance is the spot that I would be riding with here. The under 2.5 at plus money, just to, in case Matt Schnell pulls off some heroic shit again, that's obviously going to get covered there as well. But I think the vast majority of the win condition here is on Nicolau to get that finish, because I'd be surprised if he looks minus 365 should this fight hit the scorecards and he's not controlling Schnell for the majority of 12, 13, 14 minutes. So pick is Nicolau, but I'd go with inside the distance rather than parlaying him at that number. What are you thinking here?
Bro, that's why I love doing the show with you. Like, we have a lot of the exact same opinions. I nailed it, bro. I have the exact same opinion. Nicolau should win this fight, but he's super low output. All of his fights, I've bet him in his last 3 fights in the UFC since his official return, and you never get a great feel about it. The Manel Kopp fight, he's getting outworked, but Manel Kopp's just like blows it for himself, right? Okay, sweet. The Tim Elliott fight, damn, dude, he might be losing this fight, and then in the 3rd round gets it done. In his last fight with David Dvorak, he lands like 36 significant strikes over the course of 15 minutes. If not for that knockdown, he might lose that fight too. So super skilled, super talented, but again, a guy that's going to go out there and throw between 35, maybe land between 35 and maybe 60 significant strikes is just a little bit too low. Schnell, meanwhile, the guy can strike. He's got good speed. He's got good combination. He seriously hurt Brandon Royval 2 fights back before falling into Brandon Royval's patented guillotine choke. He can strike. It's just the issue is, again, you nailed it, his durability, man. On the regional scene, he couldn't really take a punch. His early UFC career, couldn't really take a punch. And then as you're seeing now, the Pantoja fight, his last fight against Sumodarji, when he gets hit, he gets seriously rocked. Are you going to put him away? Maybe. If you don't, he's still live because he's scrappy. My thing with Matus Nicolau is he's not the same type of power puncher some of these other guys are. Sumodarji, very green, sure, but nasty southpaw, long. That laser left hand hits the mark, it's going to do some damage. Some of the other guys he's fought, they're power punchers. They're guys that are going to sit down on their shots. Nicolau's not throwing enough. And really, he doesn't seem to have a ton of power. So if he doesn't knock out Schnell, because he might, 100% he might clip him and knock him out. We see it all the time with Schnell. If he doesn't, and he comes out with one of those low output approaches, he's going to get Tyson Nam, dude. And the only person that tried to warn me about Tyson Nam versus Matt Schnell was you. You fucking said it. You're like, yeah, he might get sparked, but Tyson Nam doesn't throw enough. So if Tyson Nam doesn't land that kill shot, he'll probably get outworked. Yeah, sure. But the guy's got a ton of power. Tyson Nam's got a ton of power. And Schnell can't take a punch. It's easy as that. No, it's not as easy as that. It should be as easy as that. But sometimes it's just not, right? So no doubt about it, Schnell realizes that, man, getting hit is not where you want to be at. You got to devise a plan. But he's fast. He's kind of long for the division at times. And I think he could go and put a proper game plan together and maybe just outwork him if he doesn't get clipped. But for me, money line on this thing is way too wide. And I got to wait to see weigh-ins because Schnell at 125, like he's a little big, man. We've seen him. We've seen fights get canceled at weigh-ins because he had was it a heart palpitation or he had an anxiety attack? And then in his last fight, he made the weight against Sumodarji, but he looked like shit on the scales. And as a result, everything that hit him put him on rubbery legs. So I think part of his chin issues is probably him cutting a large amount of weight. So I got to see what he looks like on the scales. If he looks weak, if he looks, susceptible to get hit, yeah, all right. Maybe Nicolau goes out there and pulls one out. But again, at flyweight, Nicolau's not the heaviest power puncher. If he doesn't knock Schnell out, I could see a world where he gets outworked. So very worried on this one. Gun in my head, got to make a prediction. I would say Nicolau. But I'm going to say Nicolau by decision. And that's not the popular play. But until I see the weigh-in, I'm going to say that Nicolau just goes low output, mixes in a takedown. I don't know. I'm worried about this fight. 3-1 on the money line. This has got apple pie shit written all over it. I hope I'm wrong because I am picking Nicolau.
Yeah, I'm right there with you as well. And further to the point of the whole Schnell weight debacle, I'm glad that you brought that up because I was going to end off this breakdown with that. In the COVID era, 2 fights have gotten canceled because of his fuck up on the skills. And one was, remember the whole Alex Perez thing, like where he fucked up the weight cut the first time around. Then Alex Perez comes in a half a pound over and match. I was like, nah, dog, I'm not taking the fight. Like, dude, you're the one that's been fucking things up over the last 2 years. And now you finally got your opponent that missed away. And now you're going to be the one that turns this down? Fuck you, guy. God.
Yeah, you know what? Schnell fought Rogerio Bontorin, who missed weight by like 2 pounds, and he accepted it. And then apparently Bontorin on fight night was like 25 pounds heavier.
Yeah.
So he was like, I will never fight a guy that misses weight again. And then Perez comes in overweight, and he's like, nah, dog, I'm not taking that. It's like, oh, come on, dude. Yeah. So, yeah, I get it. But I think weigh-ins are going to be very important in this case just because he's a big guy. He's got a history of maybe not being the shakiest at making it. And I think it's going to be important to see what kind of weight cut he has, no doubt.
Yes, sir. Remember, weigh-ins take place about 12, actually, no, wait, sorry, about 14 hours from now. So make sure you guys stay. Actually, wait, they're on the East Coast. So I believe it starts off at 9 a.m. So yeah, about 12 hours from now. So make sure you guys check out the weigh-ins tomorrow morning. All right, let's get to the co-main event here. It's only welterweights from here on out, Cody. And this one includes the return to the welterweight division for one Rafael Dos Anjos, who comes in at minus 560 as the favorite here, and Brian Barbarena coming in at plus 430. Now, on first look, you're like, why the hell are they making this matchup, right? You never thought you would see Brian Barbarena matched up with a guy like Rafael Dos Anjos, especially when Rafael Dos Anjos was a lightweight champion, several years back. But now here we are, Brian Barbarena on a 3-fight winning streak, 2 of those over somewhat UFC legends, right? He goes out there, beats Matt Brown in his home state of Ohio, and then he goes out there and has an absolute slugfest against Robbie Lawler, eventually finishing him in the second round of that fight. There was a point where a lot of people were starting to write off Brian Barbarena, thinking that this guy was about to retire. He was having some like intestinal issues or digestive, system issues of some sort, which caused him to, look like complete crap against Jason Witt and end up losing that fight, a fight that not a lot of people expected him to lose. But he has bounced back. Like I said, 3-fight winning streak, beats a prospect in Darian Weeks, and then follows that up with 2 wins over 2 legends. And he shows that he can still crack. He can still go out there and throw the leather if he needs to and land big shots and possibly put his opponents out. Dos Anjos, on the other end, he went 4-4 in the welterweight division. That included him getting an interim title shot against Colby Covington, which he came up short against. But he did manage to beat a couple guys, but it was ultimately the wrestling style, which is very heavy in the welterweight division. So I'm not sure why he's deciding to go back to this division, but it was the size and grappling skills of these fighters that was causing him troubles, right? That's where he was very much struggling to get much of his work off. The Michael Chiesa fight, another example of that, where he just couldn't get much going off in terms of that because of the size discrepancy and the skill. Well, the skill, I'd still say Dos Anjos is probably technically better than Michael Chiesa, but it's just too much to overcome with that type of size discrepancy that he had going up against those guys. Returns to the lightweight division, goes 2-1, loses the last fight, which is obvious to Rafael Fiziev, and now he decides to go back up to 170 pounds. I don't really understand it. He turned 38 not too long ago, a couple months ago, if I'm not mistaken. This is his last run, right? If he wants to touch any sort of gold or even come anywhere close to gold, this has got to be his last run. I just don't see him getting it done at welterweight, though. He can beat some welterweights, and I expect him to go out there and beat a guy like Brian Barbarena with a complete skill set. But like once he starts fighting the top 5 again, he's going to be coming up short. He's probably declined since the first time he was at welterweight, but I don't see him getting any better here against, other welterweights at this stage of his career in 2022 and 2023. But against Brian Barbarena, he has all the advantages outside of youth, right? Obviously, Brian Barbarena is the younger guy here, but outside of that, Dos Anjos is the better striker. Dos Anjos has way better wrestling. Dos Anjos has a clear jiu-jitsu advantage in this matchup as well. I expect him to blend his striking with his takedowns, get Barbarena to the ground early and often, and I think he grinds them out. This is where I have the holdup, though. The method of victory is kind of hard for me to call. I don't mind parlaying RDA. Like unless his chin has completely fallen off a cliff after that Rafael Fiziev fight, I don't see how he loses this fight. Barbarena needs to knock him out. If he can't get that going, there's no way he wins this fight, in my opinion. So I don't mind parlaying RDA. I'm having trouble with the method of victory. I'm going to lean decision, which is around that -125, -135 range. But I could also potentially see a submission opportunity for him that he can capitalize on. And submission right now for Dos Anjos is currently sitting at +300 up to +325 on certain books. But I lean more so decision. I think Barbarena is a hard guy to put away. His last two losses, which have come via knockout, all happened in the third round, late in their fights. Does Dos Anjos provide the same type of striking onslaught that Randy Brown and Vicente Luque do? I don't think so. Like, he's technically just as good, if not better, than those guys in the striking realm, but he doesn't go out there seeking to take your head off, similar to what those guys do. So I think we'll see a complete mixed martial arts performance here from RDA, where he grinds out Barbarena over 15 minutes, takes home a decision victory. That sits at -135. Like I said, that's what I'm going to go with. What are you thinking here? Upset City, or does RDA roll?
No, dude, last time I felt good about a fight like this would have been Jack Della versus Hot Chocolate Roberts. It's like, I just don't see the path of victory for the other side. In this case, the same thing. It's MMA, puncher's chance, I get it. Like, Jack Della was always going to go out there and kick the shit out of him. I think people should have realized it. And the line, no fix on that one, but it jumped like 300 points fight day, like from -400 to -700. First round knockout, under 1.5. Everything you want, right? It just, you felt that good about it, right? I feel the same way about RDA. Could he get clipped? Potentially, you know. Well, who guys that knocked him out? Oh, Eddie Alvarez knocked him out. Rafael Fiziev knocked him out. You know, some of these heavy hitter guys at 55. So that's why I don't mind him going up to 170. Is he's another guy that cuts a tremendous amount of weight. I feel like having a bad weight cut leaves him susceptible to getting knocked out, leaves him a little bit more vulnerable to getting caught with that big shot. At 170, not so much the case. He's fought all the best guys in the world at 170 pounds. He's fought Kamaru Usman. He's fought Colby Covington. He's got 3 takedowns against Colby Covington. He mixes in his wrestling extremely well. Can strike, like you mentioned, smart enough, high ring IQ, smart enough to realize maybe not the way to win the fight. Strike into the clinch, get those takedowns, rinse and repeat. The beating he put down on Renato Moicano, picture perfect. The fight with Paul Felder, just the entire fight is in the clinch, the rematch with Felder. You fight like that against Brian Barbarena, a guy that gave up 5 takedowns to Anthony Ivy, the guy that got taken down 8 times by Jason Witt, a guy that, you know, has had a lot of physical problems in his personal life. Yeah, I feel like RDA is just going to rinse and repeat on him. Even Matt Brown took him down 5 times and arguably got robbed. Matt Brown. I would say that Rafael Dos Anjos goes out there and gets the job done. So what are my worst case scenario? My worst case scenario is puncher's chance. Sure, it can happen to anybody. Anybody on any given night can get clipped. Okay, we have to acknowledge that. We did. Fine. What's my next worst case scenario? I'll tell you what my next case scenario is. Rafael Dos Anjos against Obey Mercier for $1 million. I like Rafael Dos Anjos.
We're going back here again.
Bro, I like his chances. Rafael Dos Anjos could win $1 million and then fight Delano fucking Taylor or Sadibou C in the same night and conceivably win a second $1 million. He'd be the best guy at 172. Now, this is going to sound crazy. What about 185? They don't even have a middleweight division in PFL. Oh. There was no crown champion at 185 pounds. Rafael Dos Anjos could run the motherfucking ship wherever he wants.
Yeah.
But all jokes aside, yeah, I like this fight. He's top ticket material to me. I'm going to take him by decision, although I will have a small little bit of action on the submission. Just like you said, he's got a nasty head and arm choke. I feel like there's only so much pressure that Brian Barbarena is going to be able to take. Brian Barbarena is a black belt in BJJ. But again, when you're getting suffocated, you got a guy like RDA on top. He's pounding away. He's hurting you. He's landing. He's suffocating you. And eventually he gets to that position. He's live for that late finish. So the official pick will be the RDA by decision. Although, I agree 100% with your assessment of it. And I think that submission prop is live.
You're killing me with this PFL talk, but I fucking love it. I love it. Just coming out of left field as well with it too. But hey, who knows? Who knows how many fights RDA has left on his contract? And even if he ends up losing this fight, maybe what if it's the last one on his contract where he's like, all right, sayonara, let me go get back on the Mexican supplements and get over to PFL and see how that goes for me. Didn't work out for Marlon Moraes. I will say that. But
Marlon can't take a punch. You know what? The weird thing too is because we're on the topic of bad weight cuts for a lot of these guys. Marlon signs for PFL, agrees to fight at 145, and does an interview being like, I'm so happy that I won't have to kill myself to make 135. This is really going to be big for me. And if PFL wants to work with me and they understand, and then his opponent gets hurt, they're like, you want to rematch Shaman Moraes at 135? No, don't go to 135. You just made an interview about how like it's been killing you. and then he wins the first 2 rounds and gets knocked out. Rough time. But to further the theory, Rafael dos Anjos is managed by Ali Abdelaziz, right?
Where are you going with this?
Bro, but that's true. I'm not even making that up. That's a fact, right? So I don't know, man. Why not fight over there? You get 4 cornermen, 3 on your side of the cage, and one gets to fucking rover around the outside wherever the action takes place. It's great, bro. This is a good setup.
All right. Let's move along. Let's get to the main event here. Shout out to the 100 plus live viewers that we have currently rocking with us on this Thursday evening. Hopefully, you guys are enjoying the giggles and laughs over here provided by Mr. Saftik himself. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment if you guys are watching this on the back end of the show. Also, reminder that it is this podcast is available on audio platforms as well, courtesy of the guys over at the All Stars. So if you can't watch the YouTube show, just check it out on Spotify, SoundCloud, any of that good stuff, and you guys can find it there as well. All right, let's get to this main event, Cody. Like I said, also takes place in the welterweight division. We got Kevin Holland, who's reaching minus 170 now. He's going up against the biggest name he's fought to date, at least in my opinion, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, who comes in at plus 145. Now, this line was a pick'em earlier in the week. It was dead even. And now that Kevin Holland hype, that Kevin Holland love comes in, and now here he sits at minus 170. Now, like I said at the top of the show, Wonderboy's happy that he doesn't have to fight somebody that's going to be looking to take him down over and over and over again, because that's what he dealt with over his last couple fights, right? Gilbert Burns, Bilal Muhammad, both guys successfully taking down Wonderboy Thompson and not allowing him to utilize his best asset, which is the striking game, right? That's where he does his best work. That's where he can, stay at distance, get his kicks off, get his combinations off, blitz down the middle and outstrike his opponents. Like, we see him still going out there and beating guys like Jeff Neal and Vicente Luque, guys that he can just piece up from the outside. But then now when he's fighting against grapplers, that's where he starts to come up short. Just to put it into perspective, in his last 2 fights combined against Gilbert Burns and Bilal Muhammad, he's been taken down 10 times and controlled for 19 minutes out of the 30 minutes of competition that he faced. It's clear. It's easy. If Kevin Holland wants to do that, he might be successful in doing so, but that's not really his game plan or his style. The guy likes to go out there and throw leather. Like, the guy likes to swing. He likes to slugfest. He likes to show off his striking acumen and show off that he can go out there and provide a highlight reel knockout. Add into the fact that he's fighting in front of probably a sold-out crowd in Orlando, he's going to want to approach it from that aspect as well. He's going to want to go out there and put Wonderboy on his ass and knock him out. But whenever guys oblige with Wonderboy and that striking game, it never really works out for them, right? I would still, to this day, say that Wonderboy Thompson deserved that decision victory over Darren Till way back in the day in London, right? But I really think that if Kevin Holland wants to go out there and strike with Wonderboy, he's going to be in for some trouble. I think Wonderboy will be able to do his thing, set up those traps, capitalize on those traps, and make Kevin Holland pay for that. I don't think Kevin Holland's wrestling game and grappling game is to that point where he can replicate what Gilbert Burns and Bilal Muhammad were able to do. And hopefully Wonderboy is not too far into his older age and he can't stop any takedowns anymore. But if he can stop a couple, which will inevitably come as Holland grows more and more frustrated, he should be able to outpoint Holland and win this fight by decision. So there's 2 ways of looking, or I guess 3 ways I could look to bet this fight from the way that I'm seeing it. Wonderboy Thompson money line. It's reaching plus 150 now, which is not that bad of a spot. The over 4.5 plus 130, not bad. Even if you want to shrink it down to over 3.5 plus 110, not bad. Over 2.5 minus 135, not too bad either. Fight goes to decision plus 150. I like that as well. But Wonderboy by decision plus 400, sign me up. Like that, I'd be surprised if he finishes Kevin Holland, who's historically hard to put away, hard to knock out, hard to submit. I'd be surprised if Thompson even tries to go for a submission here. But I think that he's going to stick to his bread and butter, stick to the outside, do what he does best. He has the big cage to work with here with this fight happening inside of an arena and not at the Apex. This is the time for Wonderboy to get that win back and hopefully ride off into the sunset. This guy's not fighting for a title anytime soon, especially with the killers and the wrestling that we have in this welterweight division. Get this dub over Holland, call it a day. and you can make money off your YouTube channel, which is fucking killing it right now. Or you can go in and step in as an analyst or a predictor of some sort or something like that. And I'm sure he can make more than enough money off that on top of the karate schools he already has over there in South Carolina. So I'm gonna go Wonder Boy by decision. If you're still iffy about either side, I think even just taking this fight straight up to go to a decision, not a bad way of going about it. Plus 150, but plus 400 on Thompson decision. Let's go. Am I wrong here, Cody? What are you thinking? Am I way too off, or do you like Wonder Boy as well?
Yeah, man, I agree, man. Styles make fights. And the thing with Wonder Boy is that at this stage in his career, he just doesn't have the takedown defense, nor does he have the means to get the takedown defense. So the Bilal Muhammad's of the world, very smothering with his grappling approach. Gilbert Burns of the world, very smothering with his grappling approach. That is going to be effective. Holland's not that guy. I don't think he can do that. But even if he could do that, keep in mind that this is a guy that makes a career out of talking shit, entertaining the crowd. When he's getting smothered, you know what he's talking? Man, let's entertain the crowd. Don't you want to strike? Don't you want to fight? Do you think now he's going to go with the approach of I'm going to cling on to Wonder Boy and hold him up against the cage? No, he's an entertainer. He's been calling for this fight. He said he was going to retire unless the UFC pays me, and he asked specifically for the fight with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. And now he's going to cling on to his leg and hold him up against the cage for 25 minutes? Nah, man. He's going to try to engage him. And guys that try to fight Stephen Thompson and try to be the aggressor always fall into his traps. You mentioned the Vicente Luque fight. You mentioned the Jeff Neal fight. I think those are great examples. Neal especially, he just got so flustered in there that he stopped throwing. He stared at him. I can see Holland doing the same thing. He's very quirky, unorthodox. He'll throw a karate chop, he'll throw a side kick, but ultimately the speed advantage is going to go towards Wonderboy. It's going to fluster him. He'll talk some shit. He'll try to move around, but he doesn't do an effective job of cutting off the cage. I think that'll let Wonderboy kind of get going. The other thing is Wonderboy lost the Gilbert Burns fight because it was a 3-rounder, man. Give me 2 more rounds of that fight. Wonderboy wins it. Gilbert Burns is running on fumes, clinging on to him. 5 rounds better for Thompson. He's lost his last 2 fights. Both 3-rounders, 2-fight losing streak. A lot older now. They're letting him headline. But that's good for him because of the extra 2 rounds. I think they're going to play out. Holland doesn't have bad cardio. It's that he has these mental lapses. He doesn't fight a clean 25 minutes at a time. The Derek Brunson fight, he did the same thing. The Marvin Vettori fight does the same thing. He gets extremely flustered and frustrated and then doesn't necessarily fight to the best of his abilities. The one thing that's got me nervous, okay? Wonderboy's chin might not be great. Like, he's taking down guys that are looking to grapple him, but I keep going back to that Anthony Pettis fight. Like, you're fighting a lightweight. You're fighting a lightweight that actually fought at 45, who's washed up and had his day, and he Superman punches you with one clean shot off the cage. Like, it got me a little bit worried because when you look at Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Bilal Muhammad, 5'11". Gilbert Burns, 5'10". Jeff Neal, 5'10". Vicente Luque, 5'11". Anthony Pettis, 5'9". Darren Till, 6 foot. George Masvidal, 5'11". Tyron Woodley, 5'9". Rory McDonald, 6 foot. He's literally, that's the tallest guy he's fought is 6 feet. The longest reach he's fought is 76 inches. Now in Kevin Holland, he's taking down a guy that's 6'3" with an 81-inch reach. It's 5 inches longer than he's ever faced, and he's the tallest guy by 3 inches that he's ever faced. His style of touch and go from the outside and flowing, it might cause him to be like, it's a little bit harder to manage that distance and get the same reads as shorter opponents. So if for whatever reason he doesn't, he bobs when he should weave, or he doesn't quite get out of the way and he's got that low, his hands are by his side and he's feinting and he's faking. Like, Holland's got some big power, man. At 185, he's got power. At 170, he's got a ton of it. And if he clips Wonderboy going to topple over. So not only does he got to fight a clean game plan, he needs to fight a clean, disciplined game plan for 25 straight minutes. But I do have faith in the guy. I think he can do it. I'm expecting him to do it. So I'm going to bank off the same thing you're saying. I got Wonderboy by decision. 350 to 400, depending on what book you're using. Still a good price.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you touched on the whole length and reach and all that from Kevin Holland, because yes, that is a very important aspect of this fight. We haven't seen Wonderboy deal with a guy like that. How will that play into his game plan? And again, if Holland can find that chin, how far gone is Wonderboy's chin as well? So all interesting points for us to find out this Saturday. Make sure you guys check it out. All right, before we wrap this show up, the thing that you guys always enjoy that we do the most is the 3 best prop bets. So let's get that on the screen and going. And as always, I'll kick things off here. First up, the aforementioned Wonderboy by decision. Plus 350 is what I put just for the sake of the show, but it is, plus 400 at certain spots as well. I don't need to rehash it. We just talked about it. Thompson by decision. Next up, Pierce and Elkins under 2.5, -135. You know what I mean? You could go with the knockout approach that Cody mentioned during his breakdown as well on Jonathan Pierce. I think that's around that +160, +170 mark. I just think I do agree with that. But for some reason, I just always like covering all my bases in case and taking the under instead of the straight up prop here on Pierce to win by knockout. But I like the under 2.5, -135. Look for Pierce to finish him in round 1, +200 on that specifically too. And lastly, I'm going to go with the Francis Marshall Marcelo Rojo over 1.5 at -180. A little bit chalky, but I'm kind of surprised the line is this wide, or even the fact that it's this short and at 1.5 compared to 2.5. Considering the style that Marshall needs to win this fight. And that's to grind and slow down Rojo, put him up against the fence, drag him to the ground, control him from on top. Rojo, hard to put away at times unless it gets late into the fight. And that's where Marshall probably ends up getting his hand raised. I'm just going to go with the over 1.5 here. Like I said, a little bit chalky, but I think it's worth it based on the styles that these guys fight with. Cody, you're up, my brother.
Well, you hit that Waldo Acosta Cortez like +600 by decision last time. So I got to do a little bit of work here, right? Diakese by decision, -135. He's not looking to finish anybody. He's looking to wrestle hard. Michael Johnson, durability, not necessarily the issue. Takedown defense is. So I feel like Diakese put him through the pace, put him through the motion, get those takedowns, ground him early and often, and then pick up that decision. -135. Moving on, we got another decision for you. We got Jack Hermanson by decision, +115. This is what I like, man. If he keeps the fight standing, he doesn't have the kind of fight-ending power to get a knockout. If he takes this fight to the ground against Delizé, it's going to be a lot of that smothering top game. In both scenarios, I don't think he finishes this tough Georgian guy. If you want to stereotype fighters, Georgian fighters are cast iron tough. And there's not a whole lot of them that are just going to wilt and crumble under pressure. And Hermanson isn't that big finisher. So I think he wins this fight wherever he wants, but he's going to win this fight by decision. That'll get us that plus money. And then can't just get decisions all the time. Someone's got to knock somebody out. Jonathan Pierce by KO, +165. Last time I had Sherman by decision. He had Waldo Acosta. We just needed one of them to win by decision. The better man did win. This time, we're on the same page. We can hit this under 2.5 and the Pierce by KO. Everybody has a good time. Elkins, a longtime fan favorite, all-action guy, deserves the respect of everybody. Will be an excellent coach someday, assuming he remembers his own name. He is the man. But he's got the world's worst tattoo. My mistake. World's second worst tattoo behind Johnny Cash on the side of Alan Belcher's arm. But the damage, why is it there? Because that's who he is. And it's not the damage that he's putting out, it's the damage that he's absorbing. He's taken a lot of lumps. He's taken a lot of bruises. He's getting a little bit older. And I feel like Pierce is going to meet his match and get TKO'd. So +165 on that line beats the inside the distance because I just don't see Pierce snatching up that submission. So TKO +165, sign me up for that.
On the topic of bad tattoos, where would you rank Victor Henry's "Say Uncle" tattoo that he has on his right arm? Do you know the one that I'm talking about?
Yeah. I'm gonna.
He has like a guy in like the walls of Jericho, or like that weird the sharpshooter story, and then it says "Say Uncle" on it.
Yeah. It all depends. Like it's one person's idea of what's cool and what's not. You know, maybe it's cool. I know a lot of buddies that have like a ton of tattoos, and they'll tattoo anything. Like Jeff Monson. He called my buddy owns Kimura Wear, right? And he calls him up and he's just like, $500, I'll tattoo your logo on me. Oh, that was the deal. That was the whole deal. Yeah. He's got a tattoo artist that'll do it for free. And for $500, he'd put your logo on. It'd be great for like MMA Lock of the Night because it's on his fucking neck, man. Bro, it's on his neck. Okay. And it's a decent sized tattoo. And apparently he had done that to a few places. He's got a Powerpuff Girl. He's got a bunch of random ass tattoos.
Oh, wait, he actually did the Kimura Wear thing?
He did the Kimura Wear thing. Yeah, he's got a Kimura Wear tattoo on his neck.
I didn't even notice it. Wow.
Yeah, I want to know something whack. You probably can't see it. Anyways, I got Jeff Monson's cast. He fought Fedor. Fedor broke his leg.
Of course you would.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, signed by him. Pretty cute. And it's got Russian X-rays. Like he had to go to the hospital and get X-rays. So it's got these Russian hospital X-rays of a broken leg. And yeah, anyways, good times, right? But it's like he was willing to take the money and get a little tattoo. You can definitely pay to get that free marketing. I don't know where I was going with this, but yeah.
We're just talking about bad tattoos. That's all.
Bad tattoos. I just Googled it. Cool, the one person isn't cool as somebody else. So my boy, my longtime boy, although never meet your heroes because he's a fucking piece of shit. But Joe Riggs, my guy, right?
About this.
I to think that Riggs tattoo on his chest was dope. Those things dope. And then I read this thing, it was like top 10 worst tattoos in MMA, and he was like number 2. And he was like breaking it down. It was like, this is only cool to somebody at 3 a.m. drunk on a boardwalk. I was like, oh my God. It's like aqua green. The font is fucking terrible. And it's just like Riggs ballooned over. Like, it's a terrible tattoo. It really is. But guys, he's my guy. He's cool, right?
Oh my God, the diesel, that's what he has across his stomach, right? But God,
Diesel, yeah, Diesel
insane.
Riggs.
That's insane. All right, let's wrap this bad boy up, Cody. I'll pass it over to you if you have anything else to say, and then I'll wrap this thing up.
I've been rambling for 3 hours, so that's about it for me. Ontario may have banned betting on MMA, but I got some money on the BFL card on Fight Pass right now, so I got to take off for that. Some people want to watch football. Regardless, we started the show an hour and a half late on a Thursday, kind of a weak card. And the live viewers, man, like you said, the chat bumping, people showing their support. So much appreciated as always. Do appreciate all the support. And hopefully we make it profitable, and we'll catch you guys a couple more times before year end.
There we go. All right. Appreciate everybody checking out the show. As always, hit that like and subscribe on the way out. Check out the show on audio platforms as well if you haven't already. And we'll see you guys next week. UFC 282, big fight card, light heavyweight title on the line, the vacant light heavyweight title on the line. The Magomed Ankalaev era is just about to begin, but we'll break that down a little bit more starting next week. Appreciate all the love and support as always, guys. Good luck on your bets, and we'll see you guys next week. Peace.